Chapter 551. After Arya had successfully slain the evil dragon, she became one of the goddesses of the players. Fortunately for the players, they would receive 20% of the materials from the evil dragon. Mei Chuan and his companions did not complain. They did not think that the rewards were too little. They even thought that they would not receive any rewards. When the blue dragon ignored the traps and charged into the crowd and spat out dragon breath, the players knew that they were doomed. The great dragon was so powerful that they could not kill it easily. According to the evil dragon's habit of taking revenge, the entire carefree town might be destroyed. Many players were planning to ask for reinforcements. They only had control over the town in name. If the evil dragon destroyed the town because of them, the players of the carefree faction would not know what kind of consequences they would have to bear. Fortunately, the reinforcements from the City of Dawn arrived faster than they had expected. Or rather, His Royal Highness should have placed a lot of people in their territory to save them in times of crisis. Prince William is a good man. He left us a trump card. If not, we would all have to return to the city to revive. After Arya left, the players started to discuss among themselves. I don't know if Prince William is doing well, but he must be worried that we will destroy his territory. That's why he sent his men to hide in the town. He's afraid that we might provoke a powerful enemy. Pants, I see that you have obtained a lot of dragon blood, dragon meat, and dragon scales. Are we going to sell them or share them with the others? Someone was eyeing the loot. Mei Chuan hesitated for a while before he said with a smile, I'll exchange 10 of them with my guild contribution points. The rest will be auctioned. The gold coins will be used to build the town. We'll try our best to upgrade it to a small city as soon as possible. All right. As a professional with the thunder element, I'll have to spend some gold coins to become a dragon's blood warrior. The market price of RMB is going to be the market price of gold coins. Do I need to spend money to play the game? I've never spent more than a cent. A skinny guy with dark circles under his eyes suddenly appeared. When the players saw him, they were speechless. The Carefree faction was a place for the players to hang out. Most of them were tourists or professional players. There were almost no Liver Kings. However, this person was different. He was the only super Liver King of the Carefree sect. His ID was blood from 1,000 miles. Out of the 24 hours in a day, there were 25 hours of online time. Not only was he the highest leveled player in the entire guild, but he was also in the top 100 of the Huaxia region's leaderboards. Needless to say, his guild contribution points were also the highest. More importantly, he was also a thunder profession, so the dragon scale and dragon blood were basically unavoidable. The Carefree faction had failed to slay the dragon and had almost been killed by the dragon. Fortunately, the news of the goddess saving them quickly spread throughout the Dawn forums. All of a sudden, the players who knew what had happened were extremely envious. After the video of Arya slaying the dragon was released, her youthful beauty and figure attracted many male fans. However, just as someone was about to dig into Arya's background, as one of Legolas' former apprentices, Forever Alone could not help but send out 2 videos. Well, one of them was a video of Legolas teaching Arya how to shoot an arrow. It was a loving and affectionate scene. It was as if their bodies were touching, and it was as if they were dancing with each other while shooting an arrow. Then, he uploaded a video of Legolas teaching himself and others how to shoot an arrow. After Legolas shot a skill, he would ask the players to learn it. If they could not learn it, they would be beaten up. If they could not learn it well, they would still be beaten up. No matter what, they would still be beaten up. Such a huge difference was unbearable. For a moment, countless male players felt as if they had fallen out of love, become widowed, and divorced. In particular, they did not expect one of the Prince Charming of the City of Dawn to be so cunning. Did he really have to groom his wife from a lowly? Is this the true love story between Xiao Longnu and her uncle? Legolas is a cruel killer. AWSL, Arya was so cute when she was young, but I feel that this couple is not bad. They are both Blackleaf elves, and they have long lifespans. It's not a big deal to have a 10 or 20-year age difference. Yes, it's indeed not bad. But who is Prince Charming's partner? Don't ask. It's Goddess MO. It's obviously Princess MO. Impossible. I remember that when Prince Charming left, he brought little Angel Xian with him. How dare you? Do you think the witch association is nothing? You're too timing. Sooner or later, you'll fall. Prince Charming is no longer a problem. He might even be dragged into the Mariana Trench. Achoo! William rubbed his nose. He felt as if someone had been talking about him recently. Otherwise, it was a conspiracy. He stayed in the winged people's territory for 3 days. After discussing some cooperation matters with the winged holy angel, he left with a group of young winged people who had been deceived by his good looks. There were only a few thousand of them, but they were all grandmasters. At the same time, he had gained a lot of affinity with a group of little angels. How should he put it? As he left, countless angels and winged people had a much better impression of William. Wherever he went, there were commoners and citizens watching him. It was as if an idol king had come to meet his fans. His popularity was no less than a holy angel appearing in front of the citizens. This situation stunned the holy angel. But the holy angel's impression of William had also increased. In addition, the city of Dawn was a neutral faction. There were many winged people living in the city, so the holy angel did not stop William from fleecing in her territory. But some people fleeced once, while others fleeced for an unlimited amount of time. As long as this greedy half-elf was given a chance, he would occasionally visit the winged people and steal some winged people. At this moment, William had arrived at his second stop, in the war-ending empire. The young winged people had been sent back to the city of Dawn. He rode on the dusk dragon and led his 4 Vajras, namely Violent Dragon, Diablo, Little Angel Shien, and Legolas, to the royal city of the war-ending empire. Second Prince Caesar personally led his men out of the city to welcome them. They hugged each other, and the former smiled and said, "Brother, you're finally here. You're really awesome this time." "Not bad. How confident are you in inheriting the throne?" William transmitted his voice into Caesar's ear. Caesar stretched out his hand and said in a deep voice, 50-50. "Good lad, you're using cheats. That means you're sure." Caesar was dumbfounded. William patted his shoulder and said, "Ahem, I feel that you have a high chance of inheriting the throne, not to mention that you have my full support. Your father-in-law is the chief instructor of the 800,000 imperial guards, and your grandfather is the strongest pillar of the empire. I think you have at least a 70% chance of inheriting the throne. Just be careful and don't let Peter find any evidence against you." "Don't worry, Caesar, do things openly. I don't have any evidence against me, so I'm not afraid of being caught. One must always be on guard against others." William glanced at the ugly baldy, Roddle, who was following behind Caesar like a bootlicker. Roddle's hatred for William had reached more than 800 points. It was as if William had killed his father. It was impossible to say that there was nothing wrong with Roddle. Caesar heard the hidden meaning in William's words and noticed William's gaze, but he pretended not to care. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Then, the two of them started to boast about each other normally. William's father was very powerful, and he could easily suppress the warlock sage. Then, William humbly said that the Empire was the strongest power in the legendary continent. Anyway, they boasted all the way to Caesar's palace. They only stopped when their mouths were dry. Then, before William decided to meet the Emperor of War, he brought many of his subordinates to walk around the city. Not for any other reason. It was purely to increase the affinity of those little fellows who had not grown up yet. Even if he could not bring them away now, when they had the ability to make their own decisions in the future, he would make the city of Dawn their first choice. Of course, the purpose of his trip was to try his best to find those super geniuses who could enter the sage state in the future. Chapter 552. William planned to walk around the city incognito, but his good looks betrayed him. He attracted the attention of many people, and many of them recognized him as the Lord of the City of Dawn. The commoners and ordinary professionals were of a different level from him. Due to the difference in the era, no one would ask for his autograph, but they kept looking at him from both sides of the street. The young ladies who were in love stared at him intently. They wished they could melt into the arms of the prince. It could not be helped. He was too handsome. The information about his affinity had been blocked. If not for his strength, he might not have been able to walk out of this street. Besides his good looks, he was also a legend in the eyes of many people. Bards kept singing about his legendary stories. For example, he was the only victor of the Darkness invasion in the Dragon-Slaying War, the 5-year bloody war between the Elves and the Orc Empire, the war between the Desert Kingdom, and his fight against the Magic Sanctuary. He had killed more than 10 experts of the same level as him. Now, his father had stepped into the Sage State and made the City of Dawn a top power in the legendary continent. William's various identities and achievements formed a halo above his head. Many epic and legendary professionals couldn't help but look up to William when they saw him. At this moment, he had arrived at the Battle Energy College of the war-ending Empire. When William and the 4 Vidra warriors arrived at the entrance, many students came out with flowers in their hands. Initially, this group of fellows was quite reluctant, but when the prince appeared in front of them, the eyes of these young ladies and young men were instantly fixated on him. They swayed their arms while holding the flowers in their hands. After all, it was fine if they did not see William, but when they saw him, they would regret meeting William for the rest of their lives. His good looks had completely subdued these young ladies. The reason why the young ladies swayed their arms was because little Angel Shiyin's cold face had attracted the attention of this group of male students. Both of them used their good looks to subdue this group of low-leveled people who only knew how to look. Actually, William had no choice. He did not want to come here. He thought that if he came to the capital college, he would be able to deceive this group of young guys. But when the dean of the Battle Energy College heard that he had arrived, he called the living legend over and asked him to show off his skills to the students. Even if it was not convenient for him to show off, he could tell them stories about his hard work and training. This way, these young Beastris stars would not think that they could only wait for death after joining the capital college. It would be a waste of resources and talents. Very soon, William met Hones, the dean of the Battle Energy College. He was a legendary expert who practiced both fighting and magic. It is an honor for the Battle Energy College to welcome the Lord of the City of Dawn. Horns had a head of blonde hair that had turned slightly white. He seemed to have been worried sick by these little brats. When William heard this, he replied politely, "Dean, you must be joking. When I first started training, you were my goal. If there's a chance, why don't the Dawn Battle Energy Academy and the Empire Battle Energy Academy have a few exchanges?" Horns heard William's words and felt warm in his heart. Take a look, take a look. They were giving him too much face. The latter half of the conversation made his eyes light up, and he immediately nodded. That's a good idea. In fact, in the early years of the Empire, the Do Chi and Magic Academies of the 3 great empires would hold some exchanges and competitions. However, the situation has been quite tense recently, and it has been a long time since anyone took care of it. Wow, that's the Lord of the City of Dawn. It's said that he's the most handsome man in the God's continent. Originally, I thought those bards were just exaggerating, but when I saw him, to be honest, even a man like me is moved. That's right, Goddess Wendy of our college is just beside him. Usually, I would stare at her. But today, after seeing the Lord of the City of Dawn, I feel that the other women are not good-looking at all. A few young monks holding flowers muttered to each other. William pretended not to hear them and continued to flatter Horns. Before long, the relationship between them had reached more than 500. When they arrived at the inner part of the college, they saw Thunder God Thor among the many teachers. He was rolling his eyes. Both of them looked at each other and did not say anything. Then, William's eyes lit up. He said, "Dean, are you interested in letting your students go to my place as exchange students?" Exchange students? Horns pondered for a while and quickly understood. He smiled and said, "You mean letting my students go to the Dawn College and letting your students come here?" "Yes. Not only will the students learn more and better battle techniques, but they will also make more friends. It will also improve the relationship between both parties. What do you think?" William continued to guide him. Horns did not know the little scheme in William's heart. He readily agreed and said, "Since it's an exchange, let's let the best students from both sides come here. We'll decide on 100 places this year. What do you think?" Very generous, very generous. William's handsome face could not help but reveal a gratified smile. But no one noticed that his fingers were constantly plucking. The 100 best exchange students? This was the capital college. Moreover, with the 2 magic awakenings, there would be at least a dozen geniuses with legendary bloodlines. When the time came, he would try to make them return to the City of Dawn. That would be great. Both parties looked at each other and smiled. Then, they went to the teachers of the various colleges. Horns was the first to introduce Thor. You should know Thor. He reached the legendary realm 3 days after you, and he is also a genius professional. Both of you are thunder professionals, so you should have a lot in common. Hello. Hello. After the 2 of them finished talking, they stopped talking. The 2 of them had nothing to talk about. The thunder god, Thor, was still staring at William's arms. He wanted to put on a good show at any moment. William naturally had no time to talk to him. It was better to let Thor continue to flirt with the female teacher next to him. I, William, am too lazy to talk. Both of you only exchanged 3 sentences, but your little girlfriend looked at me 4 times. TSK, TSK. Little Thor, if you dare to show off in front of me, I'll make you wear a hat. If you don't believe me, try it. After that, Horns introduced a few legendary teachers. Then, he brought William to the auditorium of the college. William still had to give a speech to the thousands of young fellows in the audience. The moment he stepped onto the podium in the auditorium, warm applause resounded throughout the entire auditorium. Some of them roared, while others whistled. Some of them even threw out some dazzling and harmless magic. The atmosphere was very lively. When William saw that they were so welcoming, he humorously said, "The Empire's Battle Energy Academy is one of the most outstanding battle energy academies in the entire continent. Many of your teachers are legendary experts like me. Ahem, to be honest, I'm giving you a lot of pressure for my speech." Ha ha. I thought that the Lord of the City of Dawn was a very serious man. I didn't expect his speech to be so interesting. Oh my God, I finally met my brother William. Not only is he good-looking, but his voice is also very pleasant. The Lord of the 4 top forces in the legendary continent looks very friendly. When he heard the applause and laughter from the audience, William smiled and pressed his hands together. When the sound disappeared, he continued saying, "I've been invited by your dean to tell you about the process of training and the hardships. Actually, there's really nothing much to say, but if you want to listen, yes." There was another roar from the audience. "Okay, but I have a question first." William's expression suddenly became serious. "We are all practitioners, and we have the same goal, which is to become stronger. Do you have a goal in mind?" "Legendary. It's good to become a realm warrior." "Legendary. I want to become a legendary like you." "Sage." When someone shouted the word sage, there was a hissing sound. But William immediately interrupted him. He pointed at the student who shouted sage and asked, "What's your name?" The student who was pointed out stood up nervously. I'm Lawrence. My goal is to become a sage and the guardian of the Empire." "Very good, but not good enough." William swept his gaze across the audience and said, "I've heard about your training goals. Some of you want to become a realm warrior, while others want to become legendary. The only one, Lawrence, has announced his goal to become a sage, but you all look down on him. Why is that?" "It's because you don't have the courage to become a sage. That's why when you hear someone shouting his goal to become a sage, you want to laugh at him so that he will become like you." However, was it wrong to have courage and to have a supreme cultivation goal? Isn't this the true meaning of training? Who dares to say that Lawrence will definitely not become a sage? If he really becomes a sage, aren't you all treating yourselves like clowns by mocking him today? Think about it. It's not wrong to have a great goal. What's wrong is that your goals are so limited. Suddenly, the audience was silent. A group of primary school students did not look too good, but they did not dare to say anything. William continued to say, "But do you know what my goal is?" William pointed his slender finger above his head. "My goal is to have no goal. Or rather, if I don't reach a realm, the next realm will be my new goal. I want the path of training to be limitless. Remember, maintain a perseverance. Every time you reach a new realm, go all out. That's more important than anything else. If you can do this, I'll tell you that I'll be waiting for you. Tell me, can you do it?" William finished speaking. Yes. The roar rang out again. The cheers in the auditorium were getting more and more intense. But Horns thought to himself, it's not like you don't know that bloodline is the biggest problem. So, he quickly interrupted, do you want to hear about the training process of the Lord of the City of Dawn? Yes. This time, William's mouth twitched. He glanced at the old man. He had already changed the topic, but the old man was still chasing after it. Okay, for a long time. The prince smiled and said, I've always wanted to hear about my training process. How should I put it? I'm just too talented. Cultivation was like eating and drinking. No matter what it was, he could understand it at a glance. No matter what skill it was, he could use it as soon as he saw it. There were no difficulties or setbacks on my path of cultivation. There were no obstacles when I broke through the realm. Therefore, there was really nothing much to say. Your dean wants me to talk about the twists and turns and difficulties in my cultivation, but I really didn't. I can make it up if I want to, but I don't want to lie. He finished his sentence. The auditorium fell into silence again. Countless elementary school students suddenly fell into despair. In their hearts, they really wanted to say, then what you just said about cultivating to this level and then setting your sights on another target. Was it because he couldn't feel the difficulty of training? Kunluk, he was a liar. Chapter 553. The kids in the Battle Energy College had suffered an unimaginable psychological blow. Before William left, he had boasted about how awesome the students of Dawn College were. He had said that all of them were ambitious and had great combat power. That had stimulated them greatly. All of them thought, we can't compare to the Lord of the City of Dawn, but how can we lose to the ordinary students of Dawn College? As a result, many primary school students with high bloodlines fought to become exchange students. They wanted to go to Dawn Academy and teach those poor kids a lesson. Some of them even looked forward to the college exchange meeting. They wanted to show off their skills and fight for a good ranking for themselves in their college. As a result, William's plan was 99% complete. He just had to wait for these kids to go to the City of Dawn. Then, he would go and make a good impression on them. As Horns watched William leave, he fell into deep thought. He suddenly felt that the suggestion of being an exchange student was not very good. But the words that William had said were like a wild horse that had opened a fence and galloped away. Horns could not catch up with him no matter how hard he tried. William did not find anyone who could become a sage in the future. But this group of primary school monks were all outstanding. He saw a few fellows who would become legendary professionals in the future. They were also quite powerful. As long as one of them could become an exchange student, the City of Dawn would have another legendary expert in the future. No matter how one looked at it, it was a win-win situation. William was not too disappointed that he did not see any future sages. Rather than pursuing the future sages, it was better to nurture them in his own way. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, 2 weeks had passed. William visited the Winged Race, the War-Ending Empire, and the Frost Empire. Finally, he arrived at the Sunset Empire. The purpose of this exchange was to increase the cooperation between the City of Dawn and many other forces. It was not to form an alliance, but to a certain extent, he managed to negotiate some cooperation matters. For example, commercial trade, the college exchange competition, the number of magical beasts sold by the Beast Castle, and so on. Of course, as a top mercenary force, the City of Dawn would not accept the employment of other forces to attack the 3 empires and the Winged Race, unless the latter first declared war on the City of Dawn. This suggestion could be understood as the City of Dawn being a coward. But from the big picture, the City of Dawn could not afford to fight with them, even if they had a father. Moreover, even if the endless war had already begun, it would at most be between kingdoms and grand duchies in the near future. The 3 empires would definitely not have a civil war. The real confrontation in the future would be a chaotic battle between the 7 continents. Don't think that the 7 continents were so far apart that it wasn't time to start a war. When the next version of the open beta was released, there would be a series of crustal changes that would increase the movement speed of the 7 continents. In version 5.0, the 7 continents will be very close to each other. Even though there were still some seas between them, for some organizations, This was the time for a great naval war. Right now, William had to make preparations for the sea battle in version 5.0. The group from the City of Dawn arrived at the imperial city of the Sunset Empire. None of their acquaintances came to receive them. However, there was a foreign affairs minister in the legendary realm. It was obvious that the Sunset Empire valued William's arrival, because in everyone's eyes, his cultivation speed was not slow. As long as he did not die, he had the possibility of becoming a saint. Coupled with his father, who was at the peak of the saint realm, it was enough for people to take him seriously. But the moment William entered the city gate, a voice suddenly rang out. A black beam of light with the power of the saint state suddenly attacked. Bang! The Lord of the City of Dawn, who was in front of the foreign affairs minister, was hit without any resistance. His entire body was instantly embedded into the wall. It could not be helped. It was too fast. It was just a ray of light. This sudden attack caught everyone off guard. More importantly, William, who was at the legendary realm, did not sense any danger. This was the most embarrassing and fatal situation. Your Highness, what's wrong with you? There's an assassin. This is the imperial city of the Sunset Empire. We've just entered the city, and there's already an assassin. What's wrong with you? Diablo roared furiously. The foreign affairs minister's expression turned ugly. How could he know that such an accident would occur? He hurriedly shouted, "Guards, guards, the Lord of the City of Dawn is being attacked." The voice of the legendary professional echoed throughout the entire imperial city. 3 seconds later, one after another, the aura of a legend rank erupted within the imperial city. They quickly arrived near the city gate and looked at William, who had just walked down from the wall. His entire body was enveloped by black gas. The terrifying aura emitted endless misfortune, and no one dared to approach him. William was also a little confused. What was going on? Had he been attacked by a misfortune divine weapon? F*CK. No wonder he did not sense any danger. This was not a danger to him. He even felt a sense of familiarity that he had not felt for a long time. Damn it. As William took a deep breath, he saw his luck points continuously decrease. Oh, it had changed from 6 to 2. The blessing of the Pope of Light was still there, but his luck had dropped to 1 point. Then, he glanced at the group of people in front of him. Their old faces were twisted like chrysanthemums. The Minister of Foreign Affairs even said with a bitter expression, "We must investigate this matter strictly. We must investigate it strictly. I'll take you to the palace right now." However, when William saw the appearance of this group of people, he rolled his eyes and released the killing intent in his body. He said coldly, "Misfortune divine weapon, sure. Let me see how you will investigate. If you can't find anything, I won't leave." "Your Highness, why don't we go back? The Sunset Empire doesn't welcome us," Violent Dragon said in a muffled voice. William coldly glanced at him and said, "Why should we go back? I was hit by a misfortune divine weapon. Do you know what it is? This thing destroyed all of my luck with a single blast. My father left behind heaven-defying luck for me, but it was destroyed by that shot. My path to becoming a sage has been destroyed. If I go out now, I might choke to death if I drink cold water. Come, follow me to the palace. I'll see if the Sunset Emperor has an explanation. If you're not satisfied, you can kill me." William clenched his fists and strode forward. When the Foreign Affairs Minister heard his arrogant words, he could only smile as he followed. There was no choice. The Sunset Empire was unreasonable. He really didn't have any reason at all. The son of a top sage, the lord of a top power, had come to pay a friendly visit, but he had been destroyed by the misfortune divine weapon. If they did not give an explanation, they would definitely become a laughingstock. William's words made the other legendary bigwigs feel a lingering fear. They cursed in their hearts. Gosh, that was a misfortune divine weapon. Would it destroy all of his luck with one shot? This was a move that could stop someone from becoming a sage. Especially for the genius legendary professionals, it was an irreconcilable feud with the death of their father. Looking at how he was possessed by the black chi just now, it was clear that he didn't have much luck left. His father has just entered the fantasy continent. Don't come out again. The legendary could not help but think. That was a top sage. Even if the Sunset Empire had such an expert, But Rogers was bent on taking revenge for William. Even if the top sage of the Sunset Empire was not afraid, he could not defend against him. Therefore, some legendary bigwigs hurriedly sent a telepathic message to ask the sages to help take a look and see how much luck William had left, if he really did not have any luck left. They would try their best to satisfy him. Then, they would compensate him with some treasures. Otherwise, it would be a little awkward. In a palace, William met the Sunset Emperor, Emperor Yu, who was at the peak of the legendary realm and was only one step away from becoming a sage. When Emperor Yu saw William's ghastly expression, he laughed awkwardly. "Lord of the City of Dawn, please take a seat. The religion will come soon. You'll see how much luck you have left. I'll be waiting." William did not stand on ceremony. Both of them were legendary, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Yu drank a mouthful of tea and didn't say anything else. The City Lord of Dawn had been attacked in the city, so they were in the wrong. However, he was the Setting Sun Emperor. He had already given face to Yu, yet Yu was still angry. Emperor Yu would not be happy. Soon, a figure came to the entrance of the palace. It was the Pope of the Sunset Sage Temple, Sunfall. He was also a top sage. Sunfall, who was dressed in a fiery red robe, bowed to Emperor Yu. Then, he looked at William and used his magic to check his luck. 3 seconds later, Sunfall grinned and looked deeply at William. Then, he revealed an awkward but polite smile. William remained expressionless. Emperor Yu coughed lightly and said, "Pope Sunfall, you can speak your mind. Don't hide anything." There was no use in hiding anything. His father was the leader of the Tao of Providence. He could tell how much providence his son had at a glance. Therefore, the Pope could only say awkwardly, that the luck of the Lord of the City of Dawn seems to be gone." "Oh, what's that?" Emperor Yu inhaled a breath of cold air. He could not help but ask again, "Is it true? It's really a weapon of misfortune. The Lord of the City of Dawn should be a person with great luck. How could he destroy it with one shot?" "Ahem, it's not that it's gone. For example, your luck is like the stars in the sky, and even the moonlight is shining. But the luck of the Lord of the City of Dawn, I can only see 2 small stars, and they are the weakest of the small stars. This is the difference between heaven and earth." Sunfall explained. William did not speak. He continued to sit there expressionlessly. When he drank a mouthful of tea, he almost choked and coughed violently. When Sunfall saw this, he could only show a look of pity. Emperor Yu was completely dumbfounded. He hesitated for a long time before he looked at Sunfall and asked, "Pope, do you have any way to recover? I'm helpless. I could check his luck, but I'm not good at it. If Rogers was here, it might be possible." Sunfall replied helplessly. Emperor Yu took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Investigate. I want to know the truth." "Yes, my king." Sunfall nodded and turned to leave. Next, the great human emperor, the Sunset Emperor, and Emperor Yu, who was sitting on the throne, took the initiative to look at William with a flirtatious gaze. Chapter 554. After that shot hit William, when I saw his whole body was covered in black gas, I felt that the dark sky above my head had completely brightened up. Karen looked at Luo, who was smiling, and said uneasily, "Will there be any problems? Technically, we have cut off the Lord of Dawn's path to sainthood." Luo raised his eyebrows, patted his brother's shoulder with a relaxed look, and said, "Don't worry, as long as you keep the weapons safe. Even if someone finds out, as long as they don't have any evidence, no one can come after us. Not to mention that our path to sainthood is also cut off. Can't we just suffer in silence?" Roger said he couldn't control it back then. Then why did he come here for no reason? I don't believe he was just passing by. This old silver dollar must be trying to absorb our fortune. Really? Setting Sun Emperor, my brother, how could he sell me out? Luo asked back with a look of disbelief. Karen nodded thoughtfully and said, "You're right, but if he really wants to find a scapegoat, brother, you can't sell me out. Don't worry, we've been brothers for over 20 years. That's impossible." Back in the palace, William was still looking at Setting Sun Emperor with a dead face. By now, both sides had signed a lot of cooperation agreements. However, the most important thing, the compensation, and the one who shot the cannon hadn't been settled yet, so the prince didn't plan to leave. He was going to continue wasting time with Du in this palace. Time passed by slowly. The two of them sat from morning till afternoon. Except for drinking tea, they didn't move even half a step. Finally, a voice sounded in Du's mind. "Your Majesty, we found the murderers who attacked the Lord of Dawn." Du closed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Is it really what I think?" "Yes, it's your Majesty's brother, and Karen from the Purple Moon clan. They must have done it to take revenge on Rogers for taking their fortune back then." "Useless." Luo cursed in his mind, then took a deep breath. "Back then, I told them to take revenge on Rogers, but they didn't dare to do it themselves. Now, they did it to William. Where do they see the glory and reputation of the Sunset Empire? Do they really think that just because they shot a cannon in the dark, no one will take the blame?" Dying Sun, the Pope of the Sunset Sage Hall, thought for a while and continued to transmit his voice. "Should we stall for time and let the Lord of the City of Dawn leave by himself?" Luo and Karen had their fortune taken away from them when they were still at the legendary level, but they didn't find anything on Rogers. The Lord of the City of Dawn is a legendary being, but he was ambushed by a misfortune artifact. The difference between the two is huge. The setting sun emperor sighed and cursed the two brats in his heart for hiding themselves so well. It had taken a saint to personally divine for them to find them. Even if they went over now, they wouldn't be able to find the artifact of misfortune. Moreover, even if they found it, would they really let the two of them take the blame? The relationship between the Purple Moon clan and the Sunset Empire wasn't that simple, and his own brother couldn't bear to give it away. Although he wasn't sending them to their deaths, face was still a problem. Hence, Du glanced at William, who was still staring at him. He could only smile and say, "I'm really sorry." Several warlock sages personally took action, but they couldn't find any traces of the assassin. But according to my calculations, that person shouldn't be an assassin from the Sunset Empire. "Oh." William nodded and didn't say much. He just continued to stare at Du. If he had the guts, he could continue speaking. "Ahem. According to the Warlock Saint's calculations, there should be an old enemy of yours. After he found out about your route, he purposely hid in the royal capital and attacked. William, do you know which old enemy has such a great hatred for you?" Du continued to defend himself. If possible, he wanted to use his mouth to solve the problem of compensation, but he had chosen the wrong opponent. He, William Blackleaf, was the real, super fierce man who relied on his mouth to make a name for himself. The prince resolutely said, "No, those who wanted to kill me are already dead. Normally, they wouldn't live more than 3 days." Du fell into deep thought. He wouldn't believe you. So many people from the Magic Sanctuary wanted to kill you, but you didn't manage to kill them all. William didn't say anything else. He felt a little wronged as he took out a legendary quality transmission scroll and fiddled with it. When Du saw this scene, he immediately stretched his neck forward. Then, he said awkwardly, "Put down the transmission scroll first. You have to believe in the Empire's Warlock Sage's calculations. Your father is a powerful and brave battle sage, but he isn't good at calculations. It's useless even if you find him." The prince tilted his head and signaled with his eyes for Du to continue. The miserable Sunset Emperor could only say in a low voice, "Although the assassin who tried to assassinate you isn't from the Sunset Empire, you were still attacked in the palace. How about I choose some items from the Empire's treasure vault that can help you with your training?" "My holy road is broken," William replied in an incoherent manner. "Various kinds of top-quality natural treasures. My holy path is broken. These resources are worth hundreds of billions. My holy path is broken. All right, what do you want?" Du sighed. He realized that his verbal cannon skill was not maxed out. He couldn't win against this super troublemaker. William thought for a while and said, "My father has many divine weapons. It's a pity that I don't have any." When Du looked at William, he gritted his teeth. But in the end, he made up his mind. He stood up and said, "All right, I'll give you a divine weapon. You can choose for yourself. But let's forget about this matter. Get your traveling bards to speak less. I don't want to hear about the Empire's negative influence on the legendary continent. My holy path is broken. William had just finished speaking when he saw Diyu's murderous gaze. He coughed lightly and said, "Where's the treasure vault? I want to go in and take a look. You know that my luck is really gone. Perhaps if I see many treasures, my luck will recover. All right, I'll bring you there." Diyu looked deeply at the half-joking William. In fact, he had already felt that William was pitiful, especially in the morning. When this fellow before him found out that his karmic luck had completely dispersed, his despairing gaze and trembling hands undoubtedly expressed how terrified he was. Holy path. It was broken just like that. Although William had not spoken much to Diyu realized that William had done on purpose. William wanted to maintain his composure, but he also discovered that the despair and anger of the Lord of the City of Dawn was constantly turning into murderous intent. It had to be said, the Lord of the City of Dawn was considered a talent. Even when his holy path was broken, he was extremely calm and did not do anything overboard. He could even joke with Diyu. Moreover, William had not caused the negotiations to collapse. He was constantly displaying his shrewdness. But it was precisely this attitude that made Diyu have a good impression of him. This was especially so when compared to William, his younger brother, and Karen. When they found out that their luck was gone and they could not become sages, their expressions were worlds apart. Ding dong. Prompt. Diyu's affinity for you has increased by 320 points. William's body trembled slightly as he stood up. When he followed Diyu out, he was still expressionless. Occasionally, his murderous intent would leak out, but most of it was a feeling of discouragement and resignation. It was simple. Even a strand of hair on Prince William's body was a show. He had to show that he could not take it, but he also had to show that he could not summon his father to fight against the Sunset Empire. In truth, Diyu also understood that William definitely knew that the assassins who had attacked him were from the Sunset Empire. But since both sides had not completely overturned the chessboard, the compensation of a divine weapon was not too much. At least for the Sunset Empire, it was not a drop in the ocean, but at most a tale that was how rich and overbearing they were. Both of them quickly arrived at the treasure vault of the Empire. Diyu did not have any personal guards beside him, so he was not afraid that William would dare to enter and steal. The treasure vault was located under the territory of the sages, and no one dared to steal under the nose of the sages. But William laughed mischievously in his heart. He did not expect Diyu to agree. Oh, was he soft-hearted? Had he been deceived by his pitiful appearance? It was the first time that he had entered the treasure vault of the human empires so openly. If there was a chance, it was a rare chance. William stroked his chin. He did not let his imagination run wild. He did not want to attract the attention of the sages. Subsequently, when both of them walked past, William's eyes were almost dazzled. Finally, they arrived at an alternate dimension in the treasure vault. When both of them entered the alternate dimension, William immediately sensed the aura of the sages in the alternate dimension. But immediately, Emperor Feather brought him to an unguarded hall and casually tossed out hundreds of magical imprints that Qin Feng couldn't understand. The door of the hall slowly opened, and the sages' boundaries were separated. Then, both of them stepped into the hall, and in this empty space, dozens of dazzling spheres appeared out of thin air. Each sphere contained a god artifact. It did not mean that the Sunset Empire had dozens of divine weapons. Instead, there were many items that were as valuable as the divine weapons. But William still found a total of 18 divine weapons. It was quite a large number. If the divine weapons that had been distributed were included, the foundation of the Sunset Empire was simply unimaginable. It was indeed the oldest human empire in the legendary continent. Take your pick. You can take any one of these items. I won't go back on my words. Diyu raised his eyebrows. The truly valuable items were not here. The items here could only increase one's combat power. They were of no strategic use. Moreover, Diyu did not believe that the inexperienced Lord of the City of Dawn would be able to choose the best treasures. William was actually a little dazzled by the selection. Without a doubt, every item in this treasure vault was a super treasure that the Sunset Empire had accumulated over countless years. But it would be a little difficult to find the most valuable divine weapon or other items. But, after all, His Royal Highness had lived 2 lives. He quickly walked in front of light sphere. D.U.'s mouth twitched. William pointed at it. D.U. did not want to move. The prince pointed again. D.U. walked over with a pained heart. He took out the item and slammed it into William's hand. Divine weapon. Heaven's Blade. The divine weapon that the Sunset Empire had never revealed. But in the future, William knew the name of the Heaven's Blade. It was one of the top 3 divine weapons in terms of killing power. Chapter 555. Heaven-subduing blade quality. Godly weapon. Sacred weapon creator. Forged by many sages of the Sunset Empire. Materials. Unknown attack power. 13,000, 18,000 power. Plus 300 physical strength. Plus 180 agility. Plus 150 intelligence. Plus 100 weight. 39 kg durability. 72300 usage requirement. For 1,000 plus power, for 1,000 plus physical strength usage restriction. Non-gods and sages will find it hard to deal the highest damage with this weapon. Magic Breaker. Passive ignores any magical defense effects of gods and sages. Shield Breaker. Passive ignores any battle energy defense effects of gods and sages. Magic Breaker. Passive ignores 30% of the defense of gods and sages. At the same time, every normal attack will cause the heaven-subduing debuff on the enemy. Each enemy can be stacked with 100 buffs, and the duration is not more than 10 minutes. Heaven-subduing blade. Active oppress the enemy with your power. Sword energy will sweep across the world. Using the power of the blade, you can suppress all holy kings in the world. The more heaven-subduing debuffs the enemy has, the greater the damage you will cause. If you attack an enemy with 100 heaven-subduing debuffs, there will be a 50% chance of death. If the attack is not fatal, the enemy will lose 50% of their health points, and all their attributes will be temporarily reduced by 30% for 30 minutes. Skill cooldown. 1 hour consumption. None after William finished looking at the attributes of the divine weapon. He stuffed it into the space ring under Emperor Yu's resentful gaze. The Sunset Emperor's emotions were very complicated. He was very sad, and he was very reluctant to part with it, because this saber was originally prepared for him. This was a sacred weapon that had been forged for him by several sages of the Sunset Empire, using countless precious resources in a full 5 years' time. As long as he stepped into the Sage Realm, he would use this blade to conquer the world in the 4th era. He really regretted pitying the Lord of the City of Dawn in front of him. But this fellow was too much of a troublemaker. He kept saying that his path to becoming a sage was broken. In addition, William's good looks were out of this world, and he often revealed an aggrieved expression. Not only did Emperor Yu feel bad for him, but he also forgot that there was such a blade hidden in the treasure vault. At this moment, Emperor Yu only felt regret. Why did he not put this blade in another treasure vault? After all, this blade was too valuable. But now, it was too late. William was not the kind of person who would continue to act cute after receiving benefits. He was afraid that Emperor Feather would go back on his word and ask the sage to step in and force him to hand over the godly weapon. The prince wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes pitifully and said in a complicated tone, "Thank you. I now truly believe that the assassin was not from the Sunset Empire." Then I'll take my leave first. No matter what Du did, he couldn't lower himself to take back the heaven-suppressing saber that he had given to William. After all, he was the ruler of a nation, the monarch of the setting sun emperor. He could only lament in his heart that the broken saber was useless. At most, it could increase his combat power. Forget it. I'll just be the mother of asterisk king, human king in peace from now on. There's no need for me to get involved personally. Du sighed. He'd intended to put on a show in front of the other saints once he'd stepped into the saint realm, so that they would understand that the human emperor possessed extraordinary combat strength. But after the heaven-suppressing saber was taken away, he instantly lost that thought. Therefore, Di Luo rubbed his own chin. He had given away a divine weapon, and in order not to lose too much money, he had no choice but to take back Di Luo and Karen's weapons of misfortune. in order to replenish the storage of divine weapons in the treasury of the Empire. But what if the two of them didn't want to give it to him? No problem. The Setting Sun Empire had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. It had a complete set of tortures, which was enough to make these two bastards produce godly weapons. Come to think of it, the weapons of misfortune are also great weapons of mass destruction. Do you ponder for a moment? If this thing was used properly, it would be a strategic, godly weapon. The effect was simply too amazing. After William left the treasury, he didn't immediately slip away with the crowd, because that would make Du feel like he'd taken a huge advantage. So since he wanted to be the best actor, he had to perform to the end. So he continued to stay in the Setting Sun Empire for 2 more days, earning the favorability of ordinary professionals and civilians, and negotiating the Capital Institute's martial arts competition. Only then did he leisurely leave. However, in these 3 days, Yi Qingtang's expression changed. The news of the Lord of Dawn being attacked in front of the Setting Sun Empire's capital had spread across the entire continent. There was no other reason. Even if William didn't use his bards to spread the news, too many people had witnessed it. The Setting Sun Empire couldn't control so many mouths. It didn't take long. The various forces of the legendary continent, as well as countless civilians, knew that William had been bombarded by the weapons of misfortune, and his path to becoming a sage was about to be severed. When the players knew about this, the forum was in an uproar. Gosh, have you heard? Prince William's strong luck has been completely destroyed. His path to becoming a sage has been severed. What should we do? Should we change factions? Don't you dare to make a mistake. I've left 4 factions, and I'm still a trainee mercenary. What's there to be afraid of? Even if Prince William's path to becoming a sage is severed, he still has his father. The City of Dawn can become a top power in the continent, but it's not entirely because of Prince William. Moreover, this is the God's continent. We might be able to find a way to gather luck and luck. Even if Prince William can't become a sage, he's still very strong. Everyone, don't panic. When the players of the City of Dawn heard about this, they were rather calm. In their hearts, William was definitely a protagonist NPC in many versions. He had experienced all sorts of hardships in almost every version, but he had risen to power. Now they just had to wait and see how things would develop. Of course, there was another possibility. Prince William's luck had been destroyed, and he would no longer be the protagonist of the version. When the other forces heard about this, although they had a different opinion of William, none of them intended to replace the top power of the City of Dawn. As the players had said, as long as William's father was not dead, the top power of the City of Dawn was very stable. Even if some troublemakers wanted to instigate some forces to suppress the City of Dawn, the others were not fools. At most, some ignorant professionals thought that the City of Dawn was doomed. It seemed that they could take the opportunity to cause trouble in the territory of the City of Dawn. In this way, not only did the players have more missions, but it also reduced the pressure on William to provide them with missions. On the Moonlight Tree in the City of Dawn, Annie glanced at William, who was holding the divine weapon and smiling foolishly. She could not help but ask, "Were you beaten silly by the divine weapon of misfortune? Did it bribe you just because it compensated you with a divine weapon?" "Ahem, it's just some luck. Don't worry." William raised his eyebrows and continued to admire the heavenly suppressor blade in front of him. This blade did not have any elemental attributes, but the various special attributes such as attack power, sharpness, armor penetration, and magic penetration were all too abnormal. No wonder people said that the heavenly suppressor blade was one of the top 3 divine weapons in terms of killing power. It's indeed a well-deserved reputation. William glanced at the skill Heavenly Suppressor Blade. If he could stack 100 Heavenly Suppressor buffs, the enemy would have a 50% chance of being killed with 1 strike. Even if the enemy could not be killed, the enemy's health points would be reduced by 50% and all the attributes would be reduced by 30%. What a joke. Instant killing and abnormal. It had to be known that the power and health points of the sages were extremely abnormal. If one did not have the power of the peak of the sage level, it would be difficult to kill a sage of the same level. It was not that William was not strong enough. It was that his companions, who had reached the sage level, had all kinds of extraordinary talents and abilities. Of course, he was only a legendary now, but it seemed that after he obtained this blade, he would have the power of the peak of the legendary level. But it was only relatively speaking. At least for him, if he really had to fight with some reincarnations of the main gods, he might not be able to defeat them, even if they were not the reincarnations of the main gods. Just look at Akalur, who had reached the legendary level, and his father, the Lord of Chaos, who is a dual practitioner of space and time. They seem to be able to beat me up. William sighed. The Lord of Chaos was not only famous in the legendary continent, but he also had a place in the gods' continent. In particular, he had a title, the strongest person below the sage level. This was a title that had been attached to his head for tens of thousands of years. Many people suspected that if he reached the sage level, even if he did not become the strongest sage, he would become one of the top bosses. But now that I have increased Akalur's affinity points, the City of Chaos will definitely not have too many conflicts with the City of Dawn. William kept the heaven-suppressing blade in the space ring. He glanced at Annie, who was eating the magical fruit. He could not help but stretch out his hand to pinch her soft little face. Pa! The little princess slapped him, and her eyes instantly turned red. It was painful. Why didn't you take your hand away? Are you purposely making me feel pain? William blinked his eyes. Women were so unreasonable. But he still placed Annie's small hand in his palm and rubbed it. He smiled and said, "If I take my hand away, won't you be slapping yourself?" Puffed. Let go of your hand. God knows who else you have touched with this pair of hands. Annie turned her head angrily, but she still used her peripheral vision to observe William's actions. William laughed mischievously. He could only straighten her face and use a sincere tone to say, "I swear to the world tree that I have only touched your hand in my entire life." "Oh, really?" Annie's face turned red. She did not dare to look directly at William. She could only look elsewhere. William nodded and said sincerely, "Of course it's true. I have already sworn to the world tree. If you don't believe me, let the world tree slap me to death. Don't spout nonsense." Annie hurriedly covered his mouth. Poof, the little princess hurriedly wiped her wet fingers. Her little heart was beating wildly. Fortunately, William did not go any further. He just looked up at the sky and said, "This feeling of love has to be so pure. I can't drive a car. I can't drive a car in this life." "What car?" Annie stretched out her head and asked curiously. She was like a little cat. "An adult car. Do you want to do it?" "No." "All right. Then I'll see which fated person can sit in my car." "You're so annoying. I'll sit in your car." "No. You're not an adult. Get lost. You're not an adult either." "Oh, then I'll leave the parking space for you." I'm not sitting. La la la. I'll make you angry." Chapter 556. Version 4.0 was already halfway through, and 1/5 of the players had become high-grade professionals. Currently, the City of Dawn had 1.8 million advanced players. The number of advanced players had surpassed the NPCs, but there was still a gap in terms of quality. In particular, the bloodline would gradually improve according to the level. The gap between the two sides would also increase. Other than the players who had good equipment and skills, it was very difficult to fight against NPCs of the same level. To many players, NPCs were too human-like. Other than when carrying out missions, the players rarely killed NPCs. Most of the time, they would deal with the endless dark creatures. The Lord had said that they had to become law-abiding mercenaries. Otherwise, if they were to come knocking on their door, don't blame your beloved prince for not taking care of you. But after the players reached the advanced level, they would have more experience points to level up. The advancement missions gradually became more difficult. Hence, many teams and guilds were born to help the players complete advancement missions. The main reason was to lend equipment. Because the advancement mission could only be completed by a single player, many players could not complete it because they did not have enough equipment and strength. Ever since William returned to the City of Dawn, he did not do much. Now, the employment missions in the City of Dawn were completed by other people on his behalf. He only needed to say a few words and let his subordinates run errands. he could still enjoy the fruits of his labor. The life of a lord was too wonderful. In addition, many people thought that his holy road had been cut off, so he did not need to pretend to cultivate during this period of time. Instead, he used this short period of free time to start to increase his favorability in the various major cities in the territory. But just as he was leisurely enjoying his life and had just arrived at the East Sea metropolis, a dormant volcano in the magical beast forest suddenly erupted. Countless magma spewed out. The fire elements kept increasing, causing the area with a radius of hundreds of kilometers to turn into a fiery domain. Just as countless people were looking in that direction, a fiery red phoenix with a wingspan of thousands of meters broke through the clouds. It was accompanied by a cry. A huge shadow of the phoenix appeared in the sky with a radius of thousands of kilometers. At the same time, the entire sky of the magical beast forest was raining with magic light. In just a few breaths' time, the magic density of the magical beast forest increased by tens of times. While countless magical beasts were greedily absorbing the magic, they used their own methods to worship that position. The Beast Emperor had been born. What's more, it was a super magical beast, the Phoenix. Not to mention that kind of pressure, just that intoxicating magic was enough to make this group of less intelligent magical beasts surrender. The epic and legendary fire professionals of the eastern region were also heading there like carps crossing the river. This was because after the Phoenix became a sage, it would leave behind countless fire essences. This was the greatest opportunity for them to advance further. However, when these epic and legendary fire-type professionals arrived, they discovered that the fire essence that the Phoenix had originally ignored had actually been collected. This scene left countless professionals dumbfounded, but they could only swallow the resentment in their stomachs and leave dejectedly. However, the flame essence was not for the Phoenix's own use. Instead, he gave them all to Burn Cinder, who had helped him recover from his injuries. At this moment, in this volcano, Burn Cinder sat cross-legged on countless fire crystals, devouring the endless flame essence in large mouthfuls. The fiery red magic that could be seen with the naked eye formed a vortex on the surface of his body. It continuously flowed into his mouth, nose, ears, and even every pore. Beside him, the Phoenix that had already become a sage had already transformed into a human. His upper body was also bare, revealing a body with bulging veins and well-defined muscles. This muscular Phoenix saw that Burn Cinder's expression was gradually becoming distorted. Seeing that he was about to be unable to withstand so many flame essences, he said in a low voice, "Make your choice. Do you want the 3 drops of blood essence of the Phoenix bloodline, or do you want 3 pure drops of blood essence? When you truly enter the legendary realm, you will have your own legendary bloodline." At this moment, Burn Cinder was already on the verge of breaking through to the legendary realm. Sweat continuously flowed out of his pores and evaporated at the same time. However, he still gritted his teeth and insisted, "Give it to me. I want the 3 drops of blood essence of the Phoenix bloodline. I don't believe that I will die." This is your choice. If there is a conflict with the fire dragon bloodline in your body, don't blame me if you die. The muscular Phoenix replied in a muffled voice. Then he used a finger to pierce his chest and extracted 3 drops of blood essence from his heart. Next, he shot the 3 drops of blood essence into Burn Cinder's mouth. In an instant, Burn Cinder's face became extremely distorted. He was in so much pain that his entire face was wrinkled. He looked like a mangy dog that had just been born. His body was also burning with huge flames. Fiery red dragon scales grew on half of his body, while countless fiery red feathers grew on the other half of his body. At this moment, he was like a monster. Half of his body was covered in scales, while the other half was covered in feathers. If William saw this scene, he would definitely mock him. But this was a confrontation between the Phoenix bloodline and the Fire Dragon bloodline. The current situation was not related to the level of the person who gave the blood essence. It was just a confrontation between the ancient bloodlines. And the battlefield was his body. At this moment, Burn Cinder felt as if he was in a furnace. The flames were roasting his internal organs, blood, and bones. The intense pain made him unable to open his mouth and cry out in pain. But the conflict between the bloodlines in his body did not care about his thoughts. Soon, the human bloodline in his body was going to be suppressed, just as he was about to become a monster, and his consciousness was gradually fading away. The muscular phoenix finally could not stand it anymore. He vaguely remembered that the two of them had met in the valley. They had spent a few months together. That day, Burned Cinder wanted to leave. He was a little reluctant, so he told Burned Cinder that he was injured and might not live for long. He wanted to have Burned Cinder accompany him. But at that moment, Burned Cinder hesitated for a while and helplessly said to him, "Brother, I'll give you 50 drops of life potion. Whether your injuries can be healed depends on your luck. The other 50 drops of life potion will be very useful." The phoenix was very touched. She thought that the 50 drops of life potion would be enough. But halfway through the healing process, it was still not enough. Hence, Burned Cinder made up his mind and gave the rest of the life potion to him. In that short moment, the phoenix recalled many things. Even after he became a sage, he knew that this fellow in front of him had come to find him. But he still did not forget the friendship between the two of them. Forget it. I have already become a sage. So what if I break the rules? The muscular tyrant made up his mind and immediately sent a telepathic message to Burned Cinder. "Don't die. I'll teach you the Phoenix's Nirvana Ascension technique. You'd better stay alive. I also want to see what you, a fellow with the bloodline of both the Phoenix and the Dragon race, can become. If there are no accidents, if you survive, you'll be the first person in the world of gods." Burned Cinder did not reply. But that voice was like a ray of light in the darkness, pulling him out of the endless abyss. At the same time, there were also countless complicated words that he couldn't understand, yet they were engraved in his heart, appearing in his mind. But Burned Cinder did not need to understand those words. The battle energy in his body started to circulate automatically, bringing the two different flames to every meridian and acupuncture point. At that moment, it was like ascension. He felt that his body was becoming stronger. The dragon scales and phoenix feathers on the surface of his body started to fall off. Burned Cinder did not know how much time had passed. He also did not know what his body had become. But the muscular phoenix was a little surprised, because not only did Burned Cinder maintain his human appearance, but he also became much younger. Oh, or rather, he seemed to have been reborn. As for the dragon scales and phoenix feathers, they underwent a huge change. After they disappeared, they reappeared on the surface of his body in the form of flame tattoos. Time passed. Those tattoos started to change into strange runes that the phoenix had never seen before. But at this moment, endless white flames suddenly erupted from Burned Cinder's body. His legendary aura suddenly increased. Under the pressure of the phoenix, it even caused some lava to riot. The muscular phoenix raised his eyebrows. When he saw the naked man in front of him waking up, his lips curled into a meaningful smile. A sage had appeared in the eastern region of the magical beast forest, and it was a phoenix. Even though William was in the East Sea metropolis, he received the news very quickly. William, who was fishing at the seaside, muttered to himself, "I don't know if Burned Cinder is dead or alive, but this phoenix's injuries have been healed, and he has successfully attained the sage level. This fellow should be able to obtain the phoenix blood essence, right? He saved his life and helped him become a sage. I remember that the phoenix race is very friendly. They should not be ungrateful. If Burned Cinder successfully attains the legendary level, besides Moses, I will have 2 legendary generals, Sarimas and Burned Cinder." Oh, it's taken the bait. William used his battle energy to pull the fishing rod. He easily pulled a half-meter-long fish out of the water and placed it in a large basin. But just as he was thinking about how he should eat the fish, whether he should fry it, roast it, or steam it, suddenly he heard a gurgling sound. It was Lancelot. It was that brother again. But the moment William opened the magic transmission scroll, Lancelot screamed in pain. The next moment, Lancelot's bloodied face appeared in front of him. Not only was this light element man who had stepped into the legendary realm nailed to a cross, he was also tortured by various tortures. Subsequently, a familiar face appeared in front of William. The perverted Viscount of Darkness stuck out his tongue and licked the blood on Lancelot's body. Then he shouted with a ferocious expression, "Come, let me see if this fellow dares to save him." William took a deep breath and waited for the location to be revealed in the next second. The video call was disconnected. The corners of William's mouth twitched. "Brother, if you want me to save him, at least tell me the location." But immediately after, the Viscount of Darkness seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. This simple-minded fellow sent another sound transmission, using a distorted and ugly font to write a few large words. William raised his eyebrows. Lancelot had been captured after the third Darkness invasion. Why did the Viscount of Darkness take action in advance? Was he tired of playing with Lancelot? Oh, in a dream? Could it be that you're jealous? Damn, he's a pervert. Chapter 557. William's speed was even faster. It would take about 7 to 8 days. A few tons of holy water appeared out of nowhere and crashed into the magic formation. How should it be described? Or rather, a bolt of lightning shot out from his eyes and shattered the magic formation. William spoke. William slashed with his sword. The thunder sword slashed open the torture chamber and landed on the Viscount of Darkness's head. But prudence was his style, and calmness was his nature. Planning before taking action was the key to his long life. The Viscount of Darkness wanted to point at William's nose and scold him. "Are you crazy? Is there a need to bring tons of holy water here? Did you grow up drinking holy water?" William's luck points were very low, so he had to be careful. Lancelot's tone was disappointed and lonely. The Viscount of Darkness was his old enemy. He often captured hostages for Lancelot to rescue. In this city that had been bewitched by the dark world, countless commoners and professionals dug their eyes out and knelt on the ground. The magic formation's aura became more terrifying. There was no possibility of outsiders discovering it. At that moment, more blood was infused into the magic formation. The Viscount of Darkness glanced at Lancelot from the corner of his eyes. Since he was going to torture Lancelot, he had to be disgusting and perverted. The little mouse in front of him might come in handy. But at this moment, he suddenly remembered that the magic transmission scroll had been crushed. Next, he had to find Moses to get some magic scrolls that could restrain dark creatures. Then, he had to go to the Temple of Light to get some holy water. "Yes, my lord." Several epic demons walked out and continued to torture Lancelot's body. As long as there was enough holy water, even a legend-ranked dark creature could be tortured to death. But the black sword that could easily slice a person's waist only tore a wound on William's abdomen. Blood did not flow out. As a cautious warrior, he planned to do something before he went to rescue Lancelot. This was because this thing was only effective against low-level dark creatures. It was only effective against higher-level dark creatures and wasn't lethal at all. The latter were sent flying back thousands of meters like a cannonball. They pierced through houses and crashed into the city walls from the center of the city. It was like a demolition team. But nobody knew that there was a devil's den under this city with a population of a few 100,000. It was also a gathering place for dark creatures. The wicked will be tormented by the wicked. He looked up at the dusky sky and sighed. Why isn't it pure black? The sun of the world of gods should have exploded on the spot. When William saw this, he just raised his eyebrows and replied, "What's the hurry? Kill me or cut me up, do as you please. One cut will only leave a bowl-sized scar. If I scream in pain, I'll change my surname to yours. Putting everything else aside, it's already been 7 days. If you really don't plan on saving him, can't you tell someone else about it and let them play with me?" A little mouse passed by him. It seemed to have smelled the blood in the torture room and was planning to get some food. It was too late. The city wall, which was dozens of meters high, was torn apart, and the sword energy, which still had some power left, tore the ground apart. There was no need for too much. But after thinking for a while, he laughed and tried to sow discord. "TSK, TSK, if I capture the Lord of the City of Dawn, will you save him?" William waved his hand. Creak, creak, creak. "I'm begging you to be a human." The Viscount of Darkness disappeared. However, this magic formation was something that even a legendary professional couldn't easily destroy. But every time he came to a place and was about to rescue someone, he was fooled by the Viscount of Darkness. The success rate of rescuing someone was 0%. Countless blood-red runes rose from the ground and formed a strange super magic formation. He didn't have William's contact details. The Viscount of Darkness had originally planned to give up this stronghold and lure the Lord of the City of Dawn over. But the bastard didn't come over. He didn't know if he was afraid of death or something else. They were all believers of darkness. Of course, he was also a lunatic. But the Viscount of Darkness believed that he was a lunatic with faith and a desire. He suddenly turned his head to look at the torture room. But he had forgotten that no matter what it was, as long as there was enough of it, there would be drastic changes. Lancelot was expressionless. He didn't know what to say. The place where Lancelot was tied up was not the world of darkness, nor was it an alternate dimension. It was just an ordinary city in the Lion Kingdom. It was broken. Previously, he didn't have money, so he didn't prepare well enough. He had to take some risks. The Viscount of Darkness walked out of the torture room. Guards continued to torture him and strengthen the seal. Don't give him any chance to recover. I want this little cutie to kneel in front of me and beg for mercy. He took a step forward and appeared in front of the Viscount of Darkness with lightning speed. Once again, he slashed with his sword. For example, William couldn't bring anyone with him. He couldn't inform the Temple of Light. In short, he couldn't do anything. Otherwise, the Viscount of Darkness would kill the hostage. Even so, William spent a total of 7 days to complete some of the preparatory work. But the Viscount of Darkness wasn't powerless. His entire body was engulfed in black gas. His expression was sinister, and he furiously slashed with his sword. Besides the East Sea metropolis, the Green Light City, the Beast Castle, and the 5 cities of the Desert Sea also had to improve their affinity. Rumble. The Viscount of Darkness was dumbfounded. He felt unwell. Swish. William could only shrug his shoulders. He felt that it was too easy to deal with the Viscount of Darkness. It was so depressing that it was driving him crazy. William was about to take the next step. Was it fun to wander around his territory all day? D***MN. I'm leaving now. I don't need you to send me off. Even epic professionals wouldn't carry such a cheap and mediocre item with them, let alone legendary professionals. Buzz. But the Viscount of Darkness was flustered and exasperated. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. How could William be the same as those fellows? He threw a small magic bottle in the center of the city. The Viscount of Darkness pondered for a while and was about to transmit a message to William. But just as the Viscount of Darkness was sneering, whether it was the Temple of Light, the Palace of Darkness, the Mercenary Guild, or the many NPCs in the City of Dawn, they had all become the lackeys of darkness. Pah! The Viscount of Darkness slapped him. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He didn't know what to say. Tens of thousands of people in the city were turned into a pool of fresh blood. The blood fused into the magic formation. William took out a die. His sword flashed like a shuttle. But why was it not discovered? The former required tens of dice, while the latter required a few tons. William didn't know what the Viscount of Darkness was thinking. Otherwise, he would have said it. Naturally, the population of the cities that were chosen as strongholds had long since been secretly controlled. Is my request a little too much? If he's really caught by you, I'll save him even if I have to die, Lancelot said with a burning gaze. More importantly, even if Lancelot used his skills to break the lines, he couldn't stop the magic formation from absorbing fresh blood. But the holy water of light, the sizzling sound of roasting could be heard. Lancelot escaped into the world of darkness. The strange, suppressive aura dissipated, and the Viscount of Darkness couldn't receive the power of the magic formation. Lancelot's mouth was stuffed with the life potion, and he was revived. The so-called seal was instantly broken. The seemingly infallible magic formation was broken by someone in such a way. William looked at the silly Lancelot and said, "Do you really think that I've been shopping in the territory for the past 7 days? There isn't that much holy water in a city." Lancelot, who was lying on the cross, was covered in blood. He opened his eyes and said weakly, "Since he's my brother, he He knows that I'll definitely die if you catch me. You should avenge me. Why do you have to do useless things? For example, every time you catch someone, you'll wait for me to rescue them. But don't you kill them? The Viscount of Darkness couldn't wait any longer. He sent another message. Are you crazy? Your best brother has been caught by me. Why aren't you coming to rescue him? If you dare to kill another professional in the City of Dawn, I'll destroy your holy path, even if it costs me my life. For example, the energy continued to strengthen the Viscount of Darkness, making his aura stronger. Yes, this guy's luck was destroyed by the misfortune divine weapon. Perhaps he's become timid. I shouldn't restrict him to go alone. I can let him find helpers. But at the same time, yes, let me tell you, if you don't come, I'll kill him now. I'll really kill him. The Viscount of Darkness gripped Lancelot's neck with a ferocious expression. A black longsword was pressed against his neck. MMP. Boom. He closed his eyes and made a hand gesture. It was as if he was imagining the sun exploding. And *% hashtag @ After cursing, the Viscount of Darkness directly crushed the transmission scroll into pieces. He glared at Lancelot fiercely and said in a resentful and complicated tone, You see, this is your good brother. He would rather let you die here than come to save you, and he has no intention of informing the Brilliance Temple. In less than 10 seconds, the magic formation that covered the entire city was destroyed. Several epic devils in the torture room died on the spot. Something was wrong with that rat. But you should know that my holy path has been destroyed. The Viscount of Darkness squinted his eyes and hurriedly retreated a few steps. He looked at the Lord of the City of Dawn with an uncertain expression. If he wasn't mistaken, this guy in front of him had gone crazy. The Viscount of Darkness was a fool. After reporting the address, he sent a few more messages. He set some rules of the game. The Viscount of Darkness' expression changed. He didn't expect the Ranger to be so greedy. But the City of Dawn was a top power. They had so much money that even the Viscount of Darkness couldn't find out. Hence, the enemy would never know how many space rings and trump cards he had. Swish! William's expression turned solemn. At the same time, he had to take advantage of this period of time to level up. He had to prevent himself from being defeated by the Great Devil King. If the Great Devil King were to tie him to the cross, he would be unlucky. William didn't continue talking nonsense with the Viscount of Darkness. He raised his sword and said in a deep voice, If you have nothing better to do, don't find trouble with me. I know that you can return to the dark world at any time, so I'll let you off today. The Viscount of Darkness shouted excitedly. Change the heavens and earth, blood sacrifice. He took a few deep breaths and said in a deep voice, Fine, I'll watch you become a pile of rotten meat. As such, except it was undeniable that William was an outstanding legendary boss. He wasn't weak. In fact, he could be considered very strong. He was confident that he could defeat many experts of the same level. Furthermore, he was an extremely cautious, evil person. The *M. The silly girl was enraged. How should she put it? Chapter 558. The Lion Kingdom would definitely demand a large sum of compensation from the Temple of Light. Save a lot of people. Many of them are children. I don't want them to become food for the devils, Lancelot sighed. Yes, I guessed it. But time was too tight. I didn't expect that trap to trap me. He had grown. No problem. He was just an ordinary human, an 8-year-old boy who had mistakenly entered the dark world. He was going to be the scapegoat. A streak of blood floated past. Not only had the devils saved him, but he had also brought him home and taken care of him. He had even become his adoptive father. The dark world wanted to choose the true Viscount of Darkness from countless advanced professionals. That's normal. Legendary is not invincible. Sages are not invincible either. William opened his wine bottle and gulped down a few mouthfuls. William could not bear to see Lancelot being trapped in the Styx by the dark world, like in his previous life, never to be reincarnated. I just want to seize every opportunity and let light and justice shine in the most dazzling light. William scratched his head. Perhaps that was the case. Tens of rays of light flashed in the distant sky. They were the reinforcements from the Lion Kingdom and the Temple of Light. Just now, he had returned from the gods' continent. He did not care about the gazes of the two legendary devils. He was just puzzled. Why was he still unable to drive Lancelot crazy? Not to mention the physical torture that Lancelot had suffered after being captured. Lancelot had repeatedly sabotaged Lancelot's missions and caused him to fail hundreds of rescue plans. Lancelot should have been unable to recover from this setback. Those who have never experienced despair will never understand how blissful it would be if there was a pair of hands that could pull you out of the abyss. But he suddenly remembered what Lancelot had said. Even if he failed, he did not want those pitiful people to think that they had been abandoned. It was obvious. Lancelot seemed to sense that he wanted to say something. He softly said, "I am the Viscount of Light, and he is the Viscount of Darkness. There is no reason for me to give up on the light that I want to protect." At this moment, it had to be said that after Handsome had been upgraded to God of Looks, his speed of persuasion had increased. Normally, in such a hellish environment, a human child would most likely not survive for more than 3 minutes. After all, the air quality and the ridiculously high temperature of hell were enough to kill him. Instead, it was a companion who took advantage of you a little and would repay you with even more things. He forgot the dirty name he used to have. He abhors the light. His adoptive demon father could give him everything he wanted. William stroked his chin. The Lion Kingdom was unlucky. Not only had one of their cities been invaded, but their officials had also become believers of the dark forces. They had not even realized it. Therefore, it was not a loss to make friends with him. You have to know when to give in. Sometimes, some people can be sacrificed. You have to account for this. You are a legendary. As long as you don't die, you can save more people. William said awkwardly, "I don't want to lower the bottom line of light and justice, but according to the request." As soon as Lancelot finished speaking, he looked at the newcomers with a calm expression and took the initiative to fly over to explain the situation in the city. Lancelot laughed self-deprecatingly. "If I don't save 1, 2, or even 3, I have to give up when I see the trap in front of me. I have to live on. I have to watch those innocent civilians suffer and die tragically at the hands of the demons. So what if I become a saint? Have you guessed that it's a trap?" The other demons quickly retreated. They did not dare to stay in front of this pervert. "Good. I'll go back and propose to the Pope to make the dawn beer a special drink for the Temple of Light." There had never been a time when he hated the bright sky and the sun so much. The innocent demon was beheaded and died on the spot. Yes, that must be the case. I understand what you mean. Fortunately and unfortunately, when he was on the verge of death, he happened to meet a devil. Even if William came forward to prove himself, it would be useless. Lancelot was lucky to be alive. He could still bear the burden of compensation and being a scapegoat. It was enough for him to remain neutral. After Lancelot opened the bottle, he asked about the aroma of the wine. But after he took a sip, the strange taste almost made him vomit. He accepted the baptism of the Dark Altar. He received the blessing of the god of darkness and the goddess of misfortune. At this moment, both of them sat on the broken city wall. Lancelot looked at the lifeless city under his feet. He silently asked William for a magic transmission scroll to inform the Temple of Light to settle the funeral matters. He also informed the Lion Kingdom. He only knew that after enduring for more than 10 years, he could personally cut off the head of his adoptive demon father. Lancelot did not verbally thank William for his help, but his impression of him kept increasing. "Give me a few boxes, if I really die one day." "Good man, what about the Lord of the City of Dawn?" The battle between the Viscount of Darkness and the Viscount of Light had spread throughout the legendary continent. He had completely changed. Not only had he become more unscrupulous, but he had also become very perverted and crazy. He also had to agree to a condition of his adoptive father. From then on, (*MN), this idiot actually had a father. The Viscount of Darkness laughed foolishly. A walking devil could not help but glance at him. It was a pity that no one came to save him, right? In the world full of dust and magma, when the Viscount of Darkness walked out of the altar of the god of darkness, 2 of the legendary demon guards looked at him with a smile. However, their eyes were filled with ridicule. from 8 years old to 13 years old. What's the biggest difference between a good man and A-B*TCH? He had succeeded. Until that day, he only knew how exhilarating it was to swallow the flesh and blood of his adoptive father. Come to think of it, the Lord of the City of Dawn did not seem to have a good relationship with his father. An 8 or 9-year-old boy did not have many aspirations. It was just some toys and food. A good man will act on his own accord when he sees danger. But come to think of it, of course, the Dawn brand of beer. Is it delicious? The earth is his bed, and the sky is his blanket. His father must have abused him. Otherwise, how could he be like a lunatic? You should not know, but it was like a piece of steel. It was like a machine that could never be changed or destroyed. The *MN. From now on, his name was the Viscount of Darkness. He had the ability to teleport to the altar of the God of Darkness at any time. It was very difficult for others to capture him. The Viscount of Light's eyes lit up. This beer has a wheat flavor. It's very fragrant. He was crying. He could pretend that he did not know anything and let them continue to be the enemy's eyes and ears. The Viscount of Darkness did not know how he survived, because those who were trapped by devils would not have a second chance to live. I'm the Viscount of Light. The prince watched as their friendship reached 980 points. Perhaps they would soon have a relationship that was beyond friendship. He hated all living beings in the gods' world. He hated them for not saving him when he needed them the most. But you know me and my identity. Don't try to persuade me. Just avenge me when you have the chance. He prayed in his heart. Lancelot stood up and turned his head. Since I'm the Viscount of Light, I represent the bottom line of light and justice. Others can run, but I can't. Others can tell me to give up, but I can't. With his human body, he became the Viscount of Darkness. Despair, because the Viscount of Darkness was not a devil. But because of etiquette and trust, he carefully thought about it. He hated the sun. On his 13th birthday, after living in hell for 5 years, his adoptive demon father brought him through the space crack and returned to the gods' continent, allowing him to see the sun and the sky that he had always dreamed of. The Lion Kingdom did not believe that the commoners here would become believers of darkness. When A**TCH sees danger, she begs others to help her. TSK. The members of the Temple of Light, the Palace of Darkness, the Mercenary Guild, and the City of Dawn were also brainwashed. This was the scariest part. No, I don't believe that he has absolute justice and light. It's as if he has never been kind before. The Viscount of Darkness revealed a self-deprecating look. He took a deep breath and said, "If there's a chance, I'll capture him again. I must let him experience the true hellish life." The prince knew that someone had betrayed him. After all, he was a technology player. He could sense the affinity between both parties. He could sense the betrayal of his subordinates in the City of Dawn. To prevent him from being eaten by other dark creatures, he had tried his best to modify his body. He had taught him how to cultivate dark battle energy so that he could adapt to life here. The Viscount of Darkness narrowed his eyes and said, "Forget it. I'll spare his life. There's no need for him to put on this dogskin plaster. Otherwise, it will be difficult to take him down. Moreover, his father is at the peak of the sage state. He has to live in hell every day without end." He stood up and fought his way out of millions of dark creatures. He used all his means to fight until the end. William glanced at the dazed Lancelot and patted his shoulder. He passed him a bottle of wine and said, "How did you get captured?" "The blood-red sky. Phew, awesome." His greatest wish was to see the bright and beautiful sky in sunlight. But William could not be bothered with such a small-scale betrayal. They just had to complete the mission as usual. That day, could it be that when he experienced something terrible, someone lent him a helping hand? Is this the reason why he never gave up? He felt the boundless fatherly love in this hellish world. He could have delicious food and fun every day. As long as he did not violate the rules set by his adoptive father, he could complete the daily training mission. But because of this, he did not want to leave his life for the next opportunity. Instantly, a few seconds later, meticulous, William nodded. He knew that Lancelot was not a person who liked to take advantage of others. In addition, Lancelot had been kidnapped and brought here. William could understand the situation through his betrayed subordinates. This was also the reason why he had prepared so much holy water. It was also from that moment onwards. Even if those people were going to die, he wanted them to die with hope. There was no other reason. Chapter 559. In the City of Dawn, William walked into the forbidden area of the Rainbow Lake alone. He looked up at the World Tree, which was more than 1,800 meters tall. It had only been a few months, but it had soared by more than 800 meters. But then again, the magic density in the forbidden area of the Rainbow Lake was extremely high. If a professional lived here, even if he laid down and trained, he could continuously break through many small realms. In addition, the life aura here was too rich. Some of the plants and flowers around the World Tree had become extremely lush. What was even more impressive was that although the World Tree was too tall, its umbrella-shaped branches and leaves that covered the sky seemed to be penetrated by the sunlight, so the area below the World Tree was not too dark. Awesome. William secretly nodded. He felt that he had really found a treasure. When the World Tree saw him, some of its drooping branches and leaves gently rubbed William's face like a small hand. It seemed to be very happy that William had come to see it and wanted to be close to him. Take it away. Can you not be so concerned about appearance? Now be a good boy and open the door. Let me see how many good things you have accumulated. William extended his hand and patted away the branches and leaves. The main pole of the World Tree obediently formed a magic door. In the next moment, William entered the internal space of the main pole of the World Tree. He took a deep breath and felt refreshed. There were many buffs on his body, such as health points, mana recovery, and healing. It could be said that some creatures with insufficient lifespan could not drink a mouthful of life potion. Just by living here, they could extend their lifespan by a lot. It was not an exaggeration. This was heaven, the Garden of Eden, the holy land of the human world, and the legendary Wonderland. It was a pity that William did not dare to let anyone know about this place. He was afraid that if it was exposed, it would be difficult for him to protect it. Two exquisite and small pools appeared in front of him. They were the source of life and the source of magic. William looked down and said, "Wow, it's really a lot. The upper limit has become 3,000 drops. Yeah, can it produce 100 drops a day? Not bad." He raised his eyebrows and smiled as he took out good quality magic bottles and stored all the items in them, because these things had to be taken out. Otherwise, the World Tree would not produce extra life potion. Only when the life potion was taken out would it continue to absorb and transform magic. In the few months that William had been in possession of the World Tree, he had collected more than 8,000 drops of life potion and mana spring. More importantly, the World Tree was only 1,800 meters tall, but it could produce so many life and magic sources. William could not imagine it growing to tens of thousands of meters. When it was tens of thousands of meters tall, would he be able to bathe in 2 pools? But now that I think about it, were there elves who had the same idea as me back then? His Royal Highness' expression changed. Perhaps the water of life he drank back then really was bath water. He hurriedly shook his head and threw out such a dirty thought. The World Tree was the religion of the elves, and the elves probably wouldn't do such a thing. Sigh, I just don't know when this World Tree will give birth to elves. When it can give birth to elves, then I'll really be awesome. William sighed. However, the World Tree seemed to have a telepathic connection and responded in his heart. You're my protector. I'm not in any danger right now, nor can I sense any danger, so I naturally don't need to expend my power of origin to give birth to a spirit. The corners of William's mouth twitched, so the World Tree could speak. He had thought that the World Tree was a mute. I'm not a mute. I'm your beloved World Tree. You're in my body, so I know what you're thinking. Do you want me to give birth to elves? William raised his eyebrows and asked in puzzlement. Didn't you say that it will consume the power of origin? Will it cause your growth speed to slow down? A little. But if the number of elves that are born is not too high, the power of origin won't be too much. I see. Right. What kind of elf can you give birth to? William was a little curious. Regardless of whether it was the records of the elves or the rumors of other races, it proved that the elves were born from the World Tree. And now it seemed to be true. but the World Tree wanted to give birth to elves to protect itself. In fact, William had read some biographies and history books. In the Second Era, the World Tree no longer gave birth to new elves. At that time, the World Tree believed that the number of elves was enough to protect itself. 10,000 adult elves a month? The World Tree asked cautiously. Hiss. William inhaled a breath of cold air. I can give birth to 20,000 elves. That will affect my growth speed. That's enough. 10,000 elves a month, and they're all adult elves. That's great. Can you give birth to different elven races? William was very curious about this. There were many elves in the gods' continent, not to mention the bloodline. One could identify them based on the color of their hair and pupils. The World Tree can do whatever she wants. William fell into deep thought. He asked again, what's your relationship with the former World Tree? She can be considered as my mother and father. She left behind a lot of memories for me. Oh, I see. William silently gave a thumbs up. Suddenly, he thought of the fairies. He was slightly puzzled and asked, are you related to the fairies? Fairies are creatures that maintain the balance of the plants in the world. They are equivalent to the accompanying fairies of many plants. As for my accompanying fairies, they're the elves. This time, William was really speechless. If not for the high quality of the World Tree, there was no difference between the fairies and the fairies. They were both accompanying products. Hence, William thought for a while and squinted his eyes. Give birth to 10,000 adult elves a month. Then open your small world and let them live in it. Okay. The World Tree was very obedient and agreed. At this time, a small world had appeared in the body of the World Tree. The space was the size of a small dukedom. It was a little unusual. There were many flowers, trees, magical beasts, and animals from the mythological era. The small world was that magical. Or rather, in every newly born small world in the gods' continent, there would be many animals, plants, and magical beasts from the mythological era. The World Tree was equivalent to the creation god of this small world, and William was the creation god of the World Tree. 2 words, awesome crass. William left the forbidden area of the Rainbow Lake. William's brain was constantly thinking. The World Tree had brought him too many benefits. If he was given enough time, he would have the ability to become the Lord of the Fourth Era. It was not a big deal to give birth to 10,000 pure-blooded elves in a month. If there were no accidents, these first-generation elves born from the World Tree would be born as adults. Their bloodline would at least be of Grandmaster quality. If there were 10,000 elves, there would at least be a few with legendary bloodline. In this case, as long as William imparted good enough secret manuals to them, they could live in the small world with high magic density. Their training speed would be very fast. They could have strong combat power in a short period of time. What was more important was the elves born from the World Tree would have absolute loyalty to William. If the World Tree was the faith of these first-generation elves, then William was the faith of the World Tree. So, all the elves born from the World Tree would become William's most loyal subordinates. Now, I only need to develop step by step and not cause any trouble. Then, I can continue to accumulate my power in secret. Foundation, my foundation is finally not bad. Now, I only need time. William clenched his fists. He was overwhelmed with emotions. In particular, there was a lot of life potion. It was enough to let many veterans with broken bodies stand up again and step into the battlefield. Oh, although this kind of thing was a little deceptive and seemed unreasonable. But in this magical fantasy era, to the professionals who were missing limbs, they would rather die on the battlefield than wait for death in the City of Dawn. But these things cannot be done now. It would consume too much life potion, and he did not want to expose too much of it. At the very least, I have to wait until the day I step into the Saint State. William was in a good mood. He wanted to go to the Magic Tower to find Moses for a chat. But in the distant sky, a ray of fire streaked across the sea of clouds and flew straight towards William. Legendary. William's pupils contracted slightly. The electric light was intimidating. He discovered that the figure had a pair of wings on his back. It was as if he had transformed his battle chi into wings. Oh, it's burned cinder. Very soon, the meteor-like ray of fire landed in the city under the gazes of countless players and commoners. Greetings, Prince William. I have not let you down. I have finally become a legendary. Burn Cinder bowed and smiled. William looked at him in surprise. When he used his insight, he was slightly shocked. Was this guy in front of him still human? But he carefully sized up Burn Cinder and could not help but ask, doesn't reaching the legendary level mean that one's appearance will be permanent? Why have you become younger? Why do you look like an 18-year-old youth? Let me tell you, times have changed. Fresh meat is no longer popular now. I was reborn from the ashes. I didn't expect to become so young. Burn Cinder smiled. Then he told him about his ghostly experiences during this period of time. Half an hour later, William sighed and looked at Burn Cinder. You have 1/3 of the dragon, phoenix, and human bloodlines. You also have a powerful transformation ability. It seems that you could be independent now. Even if you face some powerful reincarnated gods, you won't be at a disadvantage. It's my greatest honor to be able to serve Prince William. Burn Cinder laughed and said, do I have the qualities of a sage? Yes, ahem, you should take a rest first. Or you can look for your old friends and provoke them. I'll go to the magic tower. William was about to leave. However, the sound transmission scroll began to buzz. Prince William was expressionless. He wanted to know which bastard was looking for him. He opened the transmission scroll. The Eastern Mercenary Alliance, the Extreme North Mercenary Team, and the Sunset Mercenary Team would merge to form a legendary mercenary team. Chapter 560. Besides the City of Dawn, the strongest mercenary teams in the legendary continent had merged. This news was like a storm. In just one day, it swept across the entire continent, causing countless forces to start paying attention to this new force. When William received the news, he was also stunned. He was a little confused. He could sense that the goal of these 3 mercenary teams was to fight against the arrogant City of Dawn. But this was not in line with the direction of version 4.0, or in other words, there was no such trick in his previous life. The wings of this butterfly were too big. He had already flapped many things off course, even beyond a Milky Way galaxy. Hence, the prince called for a meeting. Diablo, Burn Cinder, Surima's Doglet, Violent Dragon, Legolas, and many other subordinates, a total of 21 epic warriors and 2 legendary warriors, were all present. And this was not counting Moses. Otherwise, there would be one more legendary profession. At this moment, the City of Dawn was no longer the same as before. It was no longer as pitiful as before. There were only 2 or 3 kittens and 1 big cat. However, the City of Dawn had only developed for 11 years. This was definitely a legendary story. It was worthy of a bard to brag about. William looked at his subordinates. He was secretly happy, but his face was as calm as ever. He said in a deep voice, you should know about the legendary mercenary group. What do you know about it? Everyone tell me. The 3 mercenary groups merged and changed their name to the legendary mercenary group. TSK. How arrogant. This was a title that even William did not dare to use. But what were these guys doing? Did they represent the mercenary world of the legendary continent? They did not even discuss this with the City of Dawn to seek his opinion. Not bad. Did they know who was the boss of the mercenary world in the legendary continent? They really didn't know what was going on. William knew that they were targeting the City of Dawn. In other words, they did not want to be suppressed by the City of Dawn. But no one would have thought that the impossible mercenary group merger would actually be completed by them. Everyone knew that these 3 mercenary groups were located in the Frost Empire, the Darkness Extinguishing Empire, and the Sunset Empire. Putting aside how complicated their networks were, there were more or less pawns of the Empire among them. However, the 3 mercenary groups were still able to merge under such difficult circumstances. Without the approval of the 3 human empires, the prince would have taken out the heaven-suppressing blade and chopped off his hand. Diablo was the first to stand up and say, when I was fighting against the Orc Empire, I saw a lot of mercenaries from the Extreme North Mercenary Group. There weren't many of them, but they fought valiantly and fearlessly. Most of them were berserkers. Its commander, Alfred, was a legendary realm warrior and had countless legends in the northern region. If they joined forces, this fellow called Alfred will definitely be a difficult opponent to deal with. There will also be many more berserkers among them who are not afraid of death, far more than those mercenaries who are greedy for life and afraid of death. Yes, Legolas nodded and said, needless to say, there are millions of mercenaries in the Eastern Region Mercenary Alliance. Although the members are not all of them, there are many of them. And Paul Bane is our old rival. Ever since he entered the legendary realm, he continuously challenged the legendary experts in the Empire. He won more than 10 battles in a row and did not lose once. His combat power is not to be underestimated. Rumor has it that his deputy commander, Sikarath, is also about to enter the legendary realm. In this case, together with the commander of the Sunset Mercenary Group, this combined legendary mercenary group might have 4 powerful legendary professionals. If I remember correctly, the commander of the Sunset Mercenary Group is a female half-elf. She seems to be a space-grade enchanter. Burn Cinder scratched his head. He did not know what he had been doing in the magical beast forest for the past few months. Why was his memory so bad? You only remember women. Other than women, what else do you remember? Have you even forgotten their names? Sarimas pouted his lips. Ever since Burn Cinder returned, he had been staying in a brothel in the City of Dawn. He seemed to want to prove that he was still a man. William clapped his hands to calm them down. Then he said, "That's not what I asked you to discuss. Let's get down to business. Oh yes, there are a lot of kidneys in the slaughterhouse. Burn Cinder, if you have nothing to do, go and eat a few caddies of kidneys." Burn Cinder's eyes widened. Did he look weak? What did a bad memory have to do with a weak kidney? Violent Dragon suddenly roared. "Let's F***CK them up." Yes, let's F***CK them up. Meng Lu also roared angrily. Seeing this scene, Lautner hurriedly coughed lightly, interrupting these 2 muscle heads who only knew how to come and go as they pleased. He said in a deep voice, "We can't start fighting now. We've just occupied some of the sacred magic temple's territory, and our foundations haven't stabilized yet. Furthermore, there are many legendary experts in the magic sanctuary. If we really fight, they won't sit still and do nothing. They will definitely help the legendary mercenary group. Your Highness, what do you think we should do?" The commander of this mercenary group is Paul Bane. According to his vengeful character, even if he doesn't provoke us directly, he will still attack us secretly. But we can't really start a war. We still don't know who's backing them. If it's really the 3 empires, it won't be worth it. We said this. The others looked at each other and did not say anything for a long time. The magic sanctuary was not suppressed by the City of Dawn. It was the suppression of the martial sage and the alliance of the 3 top powers. That was how they were forced to hide in the headquarters of the magic sanctuary. But now, the legendary mercenary group did not have any enemies. Although there were only 3 legendary professionals, they did not know who was supporting them. Before the situation was clear, no one would suppress them. But the key was not this. If both sides really started a war, would the other side send out a sage expert? This was the most important question. William pondered for a while and said in a low voice, "As for those scattered missions, we'll take them if we can. There's no need to compete with them for low prices. After all, I've discussed a lot of cooperation matters with the 3 empires. We definitely don't lack large-scale missions. But we need to worry about what will happen if they really become a top power. If that happens, at least 1/3 of our mercenary market will be taken away. Your Highness, do you know if there's a sage behind them?" Wales asked. William shook his head. "The information is not clear, but I'll find someone to find out. Burn Cinder, if you have nothing else to do, go to the western region. Sarimas, go to the northern region. The Beast Citadel in the eastern region has Golden Dragon Gerald. No one will dare to attack." Both of them nodded in agreement. Then he said, "That's all for now. The rest of you should also work hard on your training. If not, when the time comes to fight with your current realm, you won't be able to fight against them." When he said this, Violent Dragon, Diablo, Legolas, and the others had bitter expressions on their faces. They hung their heads dejectedly. William did not say much. This group of people was very self-aware. Ever since Sarimas and Burn Cinder had advanced to the legendary realm, they became a little anxious. After all, It was not a good feeling to see their good friends suddenly surpass them by a large margin. It was fine for them to chat and chat, but after a long time, they could no longer quarrel with each other like they did in the past. After all, the difference in status and identity was too great. Even if the person with a higher status wanted to take care of the person with a lower status, the latter would not be too comfortable. But the path of training was long. The legendary realm was a very high hurdle. Even if one had legendary bloodline, many people could not cross it in their lifetime. William could not help much in this aspect. He could only rely on himself. After the meeting ended, he used a magic scroll to change his appearance. Then, he walked alone into the teleportation portal and arrived at the royal city of the war-ending empire. Soon, William swayed as he arrived at the entrance of Caesar's palace. A transmission scroll was used. A golden-haired young man had come to meet him. Caesar personally led William into the palace. The guards at the entrance were confused. They could not understand why the second prince would personally welcome William and even put his arm around the shoulders of this ordinary-looking man, because this was not the prince in his mind. In his mind, Caesar would only hug women with explosive figures, looks, and status, and then roll out of the door with a bloody nose and a swollen face in the guest hall. When Caesar saw William's handsome face, he could not help but swallow his saliva. He took the initiative to hand over a cup of tea and said with a smile, "I knew you would come. You want to know about the legendary mercenary team, right? Smart. It's a pity that there's no reward." William held the teacup and sniffed. The aroma was very fragrant and expensive, so he drank it in one gulp. It would be a waste not to drink it. He was not afraid of 100 degrees Celsius. The second prince shrugged his shoulders. He gently sipped the tea and sighed. "Actually, even if you did not come, I would have told you. The legendary mercenary team is very powerful, but it is not a human empire." "What?" William scratched his head. "Other than the human empires, what other force could make these three mercenary teams merge?" Paul Bane was a subordinate of Crown Prince Peter. Caesar guessed what William was thinking. He sneered and said, "Paul Bane has been tricked by my silly brother many times. He no longer works for him. These three mercenary teams can merge because of the godly murdering temple." Godly murdering temple. William squinted his eyes. These people had appeared again, and they had started to brazenly expand their forces. "Do you know them?" Caesar asked curiously. William nodded. "I have interacted with their blood armor." "Do you know who has come from the godly murdering temple?" "Scarab 3. What the heck?" William cursed. He could not help but look up at the sky. It was so difficult for him. The godly murdering temple had not officially appeared in this version, especially Scarab 3. TSK. This was an expert who had killed the reincarnation of a god, inherited the origin of the god, and attained the sage realm. It could be said that the legendary mercenary team was backed by a god. William let out a long sigh. Suddenly, he asked, "I remember that these three mercenary teams are closely related to the three empires. Why did they let them take over?" "How would I know? Perhaps these mercenaries yearn for freedom and do not want to be restrained by the empires, especially when it comes to slaying a god. Doesn't that sound awesome?" Caesar shrugged. William raised his eyebrows. "The human empires do not have any plans?" "Yes. Let's see if you dare to make a move." Caesar laughed. "Huh, are you waiting for me here? Did someone contact you?" "Yes. My throne has been stabilized. Sunset and Frost have contacted me. They want to ask me what you intend to do. If you do it, I will support you. If you do not declare war, the human empires do not matter. After all, they are just a group of mercenaries, FF*CK them. Who is going to deal with the sage expert? What if the godly murdering temple hates me? I know that they have many sage experts. Can't we discuss this? After all, we do not wish for external powers to gain a foothold in the legendary continent. Call for reinforcements. I want to fight 1 against 3. William laughed coldly. He had never been afraid of anyone in his life when it came to business. "All right, I will call for the officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs." Caesar clapped his hands and hurriedly used a magic transmission scroll to contact someone. They had to find those who did not like men, those who did not care about looks, those who were chatty, and those who were not afraid of threats. Most importantly, they had to find those who did not like men at all. Otherwise, with William's looks, he could not take it anymore. Caesar hurriedly turned his head and did not look at William. Chapter 561. The negotiation between William and the empires of the Sunset Empire, Zero War Empire, and Frost Empire lasted for 3 hours. It was followed by the sound of KO. The negotiation experts of the three empires were defeated in the arena. After William left arrogantly, they looked at each other in bewilderment. It was as if they had been blinded by something. That was why they had agreed to so many conditions. Even though I agreed to so many conditions, why do I feel that the Lord of the City of Dawn is a good person? The diplomat of the Frost Empire shook his head and tried to get rid of the image in his mind. It made him feel very bad. TSK, you have the same thoughts too. I also feel that the Lord of the City of Dawn's requests are reasonable. There is no reason to reject them. The diplomat of the Sunset Empire frowned. Ahem, I suspect that he is the reincarnation of the god of charm. If I go to the brothel now, will anyone form a team with me? Let's go. It's time to prove that we are still men. A few officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs rushed to the brothel anxiously. They did not know why. When they thought of the girls in the brothel, they could not bear to do it. Their minds were filled with William 10 minutes later. Caesar looked at the contract that William took out. He was expressionless, but he was laughing bitterly in his heart. 1. After the City of Dawn declared war on the legendary mercenary team, the three empires would pay a daily salary to every mercenary who participated in the mission. 2. The three human empires had the ability and obligation to ensure that the City of Dawn would not be attacked by the magic sanctuary during the war. 3. The three human empires would be responsible for the sages of the godly slaying temple to ensure that the City of Dawn would not be attacked by the sages. 4. The City of Dawn would destroy the legendary mercenary team within 3 years to prevent the invasion of other forces. Other than that, there were other conditions, both big and small. But anyone with a discerning eye could see that the human empires were at a disadvantage in this contract with the three empires. According to the human empires, the appearance of the legendary mercenary team was not a big deal to them. The City of Dawn should be the most anxious. But after signing the contract, no matter how Caesar looked at it, he felt that the three empires were eager to hire the City of Dawn to destroy the legendary mercenary team. But the contract had been signed. The diplomats of the three empires had stamped their sole imprints and stamped the magic seals of the empires. It was too late to back out now. But then again, it was time for the three diplomats to retire and return to their hometown, because so many things had been written in the contract. Even if they sold themselves, they wouldn't be able to afford it. Caesar sighed and threw the contract back to William. He asked in a deep voice, "Since the cooperation has been confirmed, when will you declare war on the legendary mercenary group?" "Within a month, then." William raised his eyebrows and smiled. "In the next few days, I want to dig up the dark history of this legendary mercenary team. I need the cooperation of the human empires. First, it's public opinion. Then it's declaring war from the moral high ground." "That's right. Since we can do that, why not? Anyway, this legendary mercenary team has many blemishes. If we publicize them now, even if it doesn't affect their power, the civilians and ordinary professionals will hate them. Anyway, we can discuss them before they declare war. Then, the City of Dawn will have enough reasons to declare war." "That's right. That's good. The three empires will definitely help with the negative opinions of the legendary mercenary group. But the City of Dawn will have to rely on itself," Caesar said in a low voice as he looked at William. "No matter how much help the three empires provided. At most, they would provide support in terms of money and resources. They would not provide much help in terms of manpower and equipment. Therefore, it was still unknown who would be the final victor between the two sides." William spent only a day in the capital of the war-ending empire. He had already confirmed the hostile relationship between the City of Dawn and the legendary mercenary group. He had also taken a lot of benefits from the three human empires. The human empires like to sit on the sidelines and watch the tigers fight. They like to make use of outsiders to solve their problems. They rarely took the initiative to enter the battlefield. This was the arrogant nature of the human empires. It was also an opportunity for the City of Dawn to make a lot of money. However, he had to change the legendary mercenary group within a month. It had to be said that this mission was a little rushed. The City of Dawn had just become a top power and had not had the time to develop. But then again, if the players knew about this, they would still celebrate. This was because to the players, this mission would be an SSS-level super main storyline mission. What made the players even happier was that the battles between the mercenary groups were usually battles to occupy strongholds. This meant that when both sides were not in a desperate situation, they would usually engage in small-scale battles. It was very difficult for a large-scale battle to break out. This was actually more beneficial to the players. They preferred small-scale battles that involved guilds and teams. As time passed, the bards controlled by the City of Dawn continuously attacked the legendary mercenary group. Some of the dark history was real, while others were fake. Oh, out of 10 dark histories, almost 9 out of 10 were fake. For example, when the deputy leader of the legendary mercenary group, Alfred, was still the leader of the extreme North mercenary group, he had engaged in filthy activities with many polar bears. He had also done immoral things to the giant beasts. His actions were simply outrageous. Was it because of the distortion of human nature or the loss of morals that Alfred had committed such atrocities? Paul Bane was even more interesting. His dark history of robbing natural gods and murdering Cassini, the city lord of the Beast Mastery City, was even dug out. In fact, other than these dark history that had been proven, actually, it was not a proven fact because Paul Bane had never done such things, but when these dark history were brought up for the second time and added more details, outsiders would unknowingly believe that this was the truth. In short, the legendary mercenary group had only been merged for 7 days. The dark history of this mercenary group was like a school of carps crossing the river. They were endless. Every day, there would be new stories, new tricks, and all kinds of unbelievable rumors. Countless commoners were dumbfounded. They wished that they could stay in the taverns and wait for the bards to tell the rest of the story. At this moment, in the headquarters of the legendary mercenary group, Legion Leader Paul Bane, Deputy Legion Leader Alfred, and Space Grand Enchanter Wendy were all present. Paul Bane and Alfred's faces were ghastly pale. It was obvious that the malicious rumors on the continent had hurt their young hearts. But what was interesting was that Wendy, the former Legion leader of the Sunset Mercenary Team, and now the Deputy Legion leader of the legendary mercenary group, did not have any dark history. Many bards even made up scandals about her in the City of Dawnlord. TSK. Now, everyone knew that the City of Dawnlord, William Blackleaf, was the most handsome man on the legendary continent. After this news spread, it immediately attracted the envy and jealousy of many noble ladies and young married women. Even Wendy herself could not help but feel a little smug. It seemed that she wanted to have close contact with William more than the rumors. But they were now in a meeting. Wendy giggled at the side, which made the two black-faced fellows beside her very angry. But how did the saying go? To defeat the enemy in the simplest way, it was to start disintegrating the enemy from within. Before the battle even started, there would already be many contradictions between the enemy. It was obvious that this was the case. As a man with a big picture view, William did not care about the rumors. If he could rely on some rumors to successfully disintegrate Wendy, that would be the best. Especially for such a handsome man like him, there should be more scandals. Only then would he be able to satisfy the fantasies of those infatuated young ladies. If other people had this kind of thought, then they would obviously be narcissistic. But William was different. He was really confident in his looks. At this moment, Paul Bane slammed the table as if he was demonstrating to his subordinates. In fact, he wanted to wake up Wendy, who was immersed in a sweet dream. He said in a deep voice, "Now, the entire continent is filled with slander and slander. If I am not mistaken, this must be the doing of the City of Dawn. We must now show an attitude of retaliation to prevent the City of Dawn from taking advantage of us. You also know that there are bards spreading nonsense in the legendary continent. If not for the help of the human empires, the City of Dawn would definitely not be so powerful. Legion Commander, don't play to your strengths and avoid your weaknesses. If you have something to say, just say it. An epic berserker laughed coldly. Obviously, he was not too concerned about the so-called Legion Commander in front of him. After all, when the three big mercenary teams merged, as long as the former mercenary team leader did not die, there would definitely be three factions. Paul Bane seemed to have become the Legion Commander, and he had the most authority. But it was not that easy for him to order the other two around, unless they were bound together for good or ill, forcing the other two to advance or retreat together with him. That's right. Is the City of Dawn really going to war? Who's behind us? Can't you just tell us clearly? It was obvious. Apart from the three former army commanders, these epic rank professionals also didn't understand why the mercenary groups would merge. They even wanted to cut off all ties with the human empires. For many people, this was like throwing an egg against a rock. Paul Bane glanced at the 30 or so core members in the room. He hesitated for a moment before speaking in a deep voice. You don't need to know who's behind us, but the legendary mercenary group has a saint backing us. That's enough for you to know. Many of the epic professionals were stunned. What was going on? With a sage, wouldn't they become a top force in one fell swoop? But Paul Bane said again, you're right. We can become a top force, and you will also be a member of top force. But the legendary continent is only so big, and there are only so many resources to be distributed. In addition, the City of Dawn and we are both considered mercenary teams. Even with a sage, the legendary continent can only accommodate 4 top forces. So if we want to become a top force, we have to defeat the biggest opponent in front of us. We have to defeat William Blackleaf in the City of Dawn. Only then can the legendary mercenary team rise. Take down the City of Dawn and kill William. Many people shouted. The temptation of a top force was too great for these professionals. That's right. Take down William. After saying this, Wendy could not help but lick her sexy lips. Paul Bane, Alfred, and many other epic professionals were speechless. Boss, what you said about taking down William was different from what we said. Chapter 562. With the support of the God-slaying temple, the legendary mercenary team was not only financially strong, but they also had all kinds of equipment and resources. In other words, they had both money and manpower. They just had to work hard. The legendary mercenary team had millions of mercenaries, and their equipment had been upgraded. Just this point alone was enough to show how rich the God-slaying temple was. Paul Bane also felt that since he had many sages backing him, he had the confidence and qualifications to compete with the City of Dawn. He treated the City of Dawn as a stepping stone. As time passed, half a month had passed. Both sides had not really started fighting, but they were in a state of mutual hostility. There were all kinds of small conflicts, and both sides were angry. As for the Mercenary Guild, which was also one of the top 4 powers, they were rather neutral in this matter. Even though the City of Dawn was also one of the top powers, William was still a rising star. In terms of connections with the Mercenary Guild, he was still lacking compared to the legendary mercenary team. If it weren't for his good looks and the fact that he had a saint as his father, the Mercenary Union might have leaned towards the legendary mercenary group that they had a good relationship with. But even if the Mercenary Guild did not side with either side, the legendary mercenary team still occupied 4 levels of the continent within half a month. They were almost on par with the City of Dawn. The remaining 2 levels were occupied by other small mercenary teams. In a word, once the legendary mercenary team merged, they immediately reached the peak. They really had the limelight of the top powers. Even though they had a lot of negative opinions, Paul Bane, Alfred, and Wendy were all famous legendary figures. The legendary mercenary team, formed by the 3 of them, might have countless legendary stories, just like the name of the mercenary team. In addition, the 3 legendary Legion commanders and deputy Legion commanders had the potential to become sages. They were obviously stronger than the City of Dawn. William Blackleaf's path to becoming a sage seemed to have been cut off, although this had not been confirmed, and no one could be sure that William did not have the ability to recover. Many people had already obtained inside information from the Sunset Empire. One of the theories was very interesting. It seemed that a great noble of the Sunset Empire did not like the City of Dawn and used the weapon of misfortune to attack William. In the end, the Lord of the City of Dawn realized that the other party was too powerful. He could only swallow his broken teeth. Therefore, when the battle between the City of Dawn and the legendary mercenary team developed to this stage, the onlookers felt that if the sages of the City of Dawn did not intervene, the City of Dawn would definitely lose. At this point, William did not say anything, nor did he explain himself, because the outsiders did not know that Burned Cinder had become a legendary. He also had the hope of becoming a sage. If the legendary mercenary team only had those 3 legends, William was confident that he could defeat Moses without even needing to do anything. Even if the godly murdering temple gave him help, William did not believe that the City of Moses would lose easily. The only thing he was afraid of was the murdering god hall and their goal. If the god-murdering temple knew that Moses was the reincarnation of a god, or the reincarnation of the goddess of magic, the consequences would be different. Maybe a saint would come out and kill him. The godly murdering temple had a strong desire to kill the gods, and they had a long history. Before the humans had become the masters of the Third Era, the godly murdering temple was already famous in the gods' continent. The godly murdering temple was not a top power like the magic sanctuary. It was one of the superpowers in the gods' continent. The number of sages and legendary professionals was unknown, but in all aspects, they were not inferior to a human empire. More importantly, this super organization that had existed for countless years, its internal members were not separated by race, especially the holy armor sequence of the Murdering God Palace, which was also the saints of the Murdering God Palace. Not only were they all extremely mysterious, they all had powerful backgrounds. They could be the pillars of a human empire, the sage elders of an elven kingdom, or even the holy angels of the Seraphin. In short, the terrifying power of this organization was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. You did not know how many sages they had. You also did not know which side they could use to attack their enemies. But in William's previous life, when the godly murdering temple attacked, they had displayed their powerful forces and abilities. The players were also discussing on the forum. They felt that this super organization was not weaker than a human empire. In fact, it was stronger than many human empires. But it doesn't make sense that the godly murdering temple is Mondo. You could do whatever you want and go wherever you want. Since you want to control the mercenary organizations in the legendary continent and use the City of Dawn as a stepping stone, don't blame the stone for being too sharp and hard. You'll be paralyzed if you fall. William looked at the documents sent by the intelligence department. Most of them were unfavorable to the City of Dawn. It was obvious. The godly murdering temple had invested a lot in the legendary mercenary group. It gave them enough confidence to compete with the City of Dawn. The upgrading of the mercenary group's equipment had increased the mercenary group's loyalty and cohesion. It had also greatly increased the combat power of this group of people. William wanted to have a military competition, but he could not afford it. In this day and age, if the poorer forces participated in a military competition, they would have to go bankrupt. There was no need for the City of Dawn to participate in an interstellar war. William closed his eyes and thought of the millions of lively and cute players. He immediately slammed the table and sneered. If you guys replace the equipment, I'll let the players pick up the equipment. Let's see who can last longer. It was also on this day. The huge machine that was the City of Dawn started operating at full speed. Batches of the Dawn Army started to leave the City of Dawn, Stormy Island, and the Beast Citadel through the teleportation portal. A total of 5 million regular soldiers were dispatched to every stronghold in the City of Dawn. At the same time, the players who were thinking about killing dark creatures or going to the Instance Dungeon received a new mission: the Mercenary War. After the City of Dawn became a top power, it was suddenly provoked by the legendary mercenary group. Warriors of the City of Dawn, pick up your weapons and show the legendary mercenary group your bravery. Mission difficulty, SSS. Mission objective: disband the legendary mercenary group. Mission reward: Dragon's Blood, equipment, secret manuals, contribution points, mission experience, 100,000. Experience points, mission daily allowance. Those who participate in the mission will receive 20 silver coins every day, regardless of whether there is a war. If there is a battle mission, they will receive 1 gold coin as an allowance. When this mission was released, the millions of players in the City of Dawn were instantly delighted. They had already started discussing the legendary mercenary group on the forum. They had thought that Prince William would have to bear with it for a while. But it had only been a month since they had merged, and the City of Dawn had already declared war. I heard that the legendary mercenary group is quite popular now. Exactly. 3 large mercenary groups merged, and the legendary mercenary group was formed. Our small team received a mission, but it was forcefully snatched away by the legendary mercenary group. I've been tolerating them for a long time. I knew it. The legendary mercenary group has been snatching business from the City of Dawn. Prince William won't tolerate it for too long. Let's get rid of them. The side missions have appeared. It seems that these side missions will be carried out by the major guilds. Our Glory Guild's mission seems to be very troublesome. We have to destroy the strongholds of the legendary mercenary group in the eastern region. There are dozens of strongholds marked on the side mission. We can only proceed with the next mission after we destroy them. D*MN, their strongholds are all in the city. It's the same as when they attacked the magic sanctuary. They're going to die again. TSK, the mission of our flourishing millennium is different. All the side missions of our guild are to cooperate in defense. The players seem to be discussing fervently on the forum. In fact, the moment the Liver King players received the mission, they had already taken action. Within tens of minutes, hundreds of members of the legendary mercenary group had perished. 24 hours after the City of Dawn officially declared war, the legendary mercenary group was caught unprepared. More than 13,000 people had died under the swords of the players, and 28 strongholds have been destroyed. But this was not the end. The players once again used their masterful suicidal attacks. They used the magic cannons to attack the strongholds of the legendary mercenary group. Even if they died, as long as they could protect the magic cannons, they would not suffer any losses even if they lost a few pieces of equipment. The players had used this method of suicide by carrying explosives, causing great losses and psychological trauma to the members of the legendary mercenary group. Even after being rescued, many of the surviving mercenaries in the strongholds shouted in fear, "Devil, devil, they are the lackeys of the dark world," and so on. In short, the suicidal attacks of the players of the City of Dawn had made the legendary mercenary group miserable. They wanted to point at the chosen ones of the City of Dawn and scold. "Do you dare to fight? Can you not carry the magic cannons and commit suicide attacks? Can't you just let us have a good fight?" It was a pity. Even though the members of the legendary mercenary group had a bad experience, the players would not give them a chance. They used all kinds of suicidal attacks to perfection. They used the self-destruction of magical crystals. Without the magic cannons, they used the simple magic cannonballs to protect themselves. Those who were slightly poorer would carry a few barrels of magic cannons and self-destruct them. As long as the players were given a chance to get close to the strongholds of the legendary mercenary group, they would come up with all kinds of suicidal attacks. Hence, in that short span of 3 days, Yi Qingtang's expression changed. The arrogant legendary mercenary group started to withdraw their defensive line, according to Paul Bain's words. "It's not that we can't fight. It's that the City of Dawn doesn't accept mercenary groups. Hence, if they did not withdraw their defensive line, what else could they do? Were the legendary mercenary group going to carry out suicidal attacks? Paul Bain wanted to, but no one was willing to do so. Their mercenaries could not be revived." Chapter 563. The battle between the City of Dawn and the legendary mercenary team was like the 21st century LOL competition between China and Korea. The former took advantage of the resurrection of the players to plunder small resources. This snowballed and continued to expand their advantage. The latter was more reckless. Since the equipment of their members had been upgraded, they might not have absolute control over the battle, but they had more resources than the City of Dawn. In short, they could afford to fight. Even if their quality was not as good as the regular army of the City of Dawn, they were many times more powerful. The legendary mercenary team was always looking for opportunities to fight. It was a pity. The City of Dawn did not want to fight with them. The regular army did not show up. They were only responsible for guarding the strongholds with the players. William had delegated the task of initiating the attack to the players. He did not say anything else. Most of the players had become advanced professionals. They had become one of the foundations of the City of Dawn. Even if the enemy had a grandmaster, they could not be killed in an instant. Therefore, when epic professions weren't as common as cabbages, and they couldn't take care of all the strongholds, all kinds of suicidal playstyles naturally allowed the players to reach the pinnacle of perfection. Many mercenaries who had survived the attacks of the suicidal players cursed the devils. Some even left the team and went back to their farms. They did not dare to fight against the players. After all, when a group of fearless players rushed towards them with magic cannons, scrolls, and magical stones, the mercenaries felt complicated. They felt as if they had encountered an army of dark creatures and the undead. Time passed. The two sides fought for 7 days. The legendary mercenary team voluntarily gave up the mission of the first level of the continent. Paul Bane's proud face was slapped. He was too embarrassed to face anyone, but he still had to hold a meeting. He did not want to see outsiders, but he could meet his subordinates. Paul Bane held another meeting in an attempt to find a way to restrain the chosen ones. When Alfred realized that the former was looking at him, he said with a shoehorn face, "Why are you looking at me? I have many elite soldiers under me, but they're just ordinary berserkers. Just because they're not afraid of death doesn't mean that they can be resurrected." I didn't say anything. Paul Bane's mouth twitched. He had not even said anything, and Alfred had already interrupted him. However, Alfred was still jabbering on. "I'm telling you, don't let me go and send my brothers to their deaths. Otherwise, I won't let you off." As Paul Bane's henchman, Sikarath stood up and slammed the table for the sake of the Legion leader's face. "Alfred, pay attention to your identity. You are now the Deputy Legion leader, and this is not the Extreme North Mercenary Group. What the F***CK?" Alfred, who was of a northern region, stood up. He tilted his head and looked at the little brat in front of him. He was about to reach the legendary level. What right did he have to say? Wendy, who was also a deputy army commander, interrupted everyone's conversation. She glanced at the disunited comrades and partners and smiled calmly. "Isn't the purpose of this meeting to come up with a way to deal with the Chosen One? Isn't the purpose of the meeting to think of a way to deal with the Chosen Ones? Why don't you guys argue first? If you can't argue, then fight. If you can't win, then find someone else. Anyway, we have a lot of manpower. We can fight for at least 2 months. What do you think?" "Wendy, don't be sarcastic. Everyone knows that you are interested in William Blackley's face. I think you are waiting for the City of Dawn to defeat us. Then, we will take you in." Alfred was angry. When this muscular man was angry, he could not control himself. He would attack whoever he saw. Wendy's expression changed slightly. She held a snow-white magic staff in her hand. Alfred looked at her coldly. Paul Bane looked up at the sky with a headache. "It's so hard for me." The disadvantage of the merger of the 3 large mercenary teams had appeared. They could not withstand any storms. If they could always obtain benefits, everything would be fine. But if there were any signs of failure, no one would be willing to bear the consequences. They did not want to pay the price. Furthermore, they were all legendary professionals. Their words carried weight. Now, they would start fighting because of a disagreement. Who could withstand this? He was under a lot of pressure. For a moment, Paul Bane was envious of William's handsome face. Now, many forces were saying that the Lord of the City of Dawn did not need to be powerful. He only needed his face to command the experts of the City of Dawn. They would not be able to find any complaints. MMP. Was it because he was handsome that he could do whatever he wanted? Was it because he had good looks that he could do whatever he wanted? Just when Alfred and Wendy were at daggers drawn, a suffocating aura appeared in the conference hall. The expressions of all the epic professionals in the hall changed drastically. The expressions of the 3 legendary professionals did not look good either. They did not expect this person to appear in this meeting. In the next moment, a man wearing golden armor and a golden mask slowly appeared in the center of the hall. He calmly scanned everyone present. Paul Bane stood up and gave up his seat. He said respectfully, "Greetings, Lord Scarab. Greetings, Lord Scarab." Alfred and the rest also stood up and bowed respectfully. This sage expert named Scarab did not sit in Paul Bane's seat. He said emotionlessly, "I have given you great benefits and allowed you to move one step closer to the sage realm. I have also provided countless resources and equipment to your mercenaries. Now, you want to repay me in this way? Or are you going to repay the Godslayer Temple in this way?" Once he said that, the entire conference hall fell silent. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Everyone could not help but hold their breaths and heartbeats. Murdering God Palace. When these three words were said, it was too terrifying. This mysterious organization that dared to go toe-to-toe against the gods was simply too powerful. Paul Bane continued to organize his words in his mind. In the end, he clenched his fists and said helplessly, "Those immortal chosen ones are too troublesome. In 7 days, they destroyed hundreds of our strongholds in a suicidal manner. It seems like they've suffered great losses, but the fact that they can resurrect gives them the greatest advantage." Scarab wore a golden mask. No one could see his facial expression. He calmly replied, "The City of Dawn attacked your stronghold. Must you attack their stronghold? Don't you dare to attack the City of Dawn and destroy their stronghold." Paul Bane's mouth twitched. That was easy to say. Did they have to be so direct? The war had just begun. Now, they had to make a last-ditch effort. The rhythm was not right. There was no need to charge into the enemy's crystal in the first team battle. But the man wearing golden armor sneered again. "I know you are afraid, but if you dare to attack, even if I don't do anything, the Godslayer Temple will arrange sufficient reinforcements for you." Really? Paul Bane could not help but take a deep breath. If the murdering God Temple really wanted to help, then the City of Dawn would be completely destroyed. If they did not kill William, his father might not do anything. Even if he did, he would not. Even if he did, the Godslayer Temple was not a magic sanctuary. It was not like they did not have peak sages. Scarab glanced at him and sighed. The Godslayer Temple wants to speed up because the advancement of the Fourth Era has exceeded the Godslayer Temple's expectations. The actions of the reincarnated gods have also exceeded our expectations. They have started to join the various camps and have become our shields. This makes it difficult for us to attack them. Therefore, the Godslayer Temple needs you to become the top power in the legendary continent and help us obtain information about the gods. At this point, he said in a deep voice, "The purpose of the Godslayer Temple is to prevent all living beings in the gods' continent from being controlled by the gods. We have no intention of fighting for the Fourth Era's master. We are also not interested in taking over your legendary mercenary group. I will provide the money, and you will provide the manpower. This is a good deal. But the Godslayer Temple is providing the money and manpower. If you still have any results, you should know the consequences." Paul Bane and the other two legendary warriors' expressions changed. They immediately lowered their heads respectfully and said in a deep voice, "We will complete the mission with our lives." After a long time, when they raised their heads, they discovered that the sage of the Godslayer Temple had disappeared. At this moment, countless people in the conference hall finally heaved a sigh of relief. They were so shocked that their hearts almost stopped beating. In fact, many epic professionals did not even know about the Godslayer Temple. They did not even know about the sage. They want to know what kind of power the Godslayer Temple was. What was the ranking of Scarab? Was it Scarab 1? Or else, the higher the number, the more powerful he was? But no matter what, the pressure that the Godslayer Temple gave them was too great. Paul Bane pondered for a while and came up with a plan. He said in a deep voice, "It is very disadvantageous for us to split up. When the sages are unable to attack, we will not be able to use the space shield to stop the reinforcement from the teleportation portal. Then we will attack with all our might. We will target one of the cities in the City of Dawn and fight to the death." Alfred frowned. The City of Dawn or the Beast Castle? These two cities will not be easy to attack. Didn't William hand over the management of the cities to the chosen ones? Then we will attack the 5 cities in the Sand Sea. As long as we attack fast enough, the chosen ones will not be able to defend against us. As long as we take down those cities in a short period of time, we will close the one-way teleportation portal in the City of Dawn. Then, we will use the teleportation portal to teleport all the civilians. When William arrives, other than the chosen ones who are still reviving, he will not be able to see a single strand of hair. Paul Bane had no intention of massacring the cities. If he really did that, then they would not be mercenaries. They would be a group of bounty hunters that everyone wanted to kill. By then, not only would the City of Dawn not be able to tolerate them, the other powers in the legendary continent would also be unable to tolerate them. And at this moment, in the magic tower of the City of Dawn, Moses, who was hugging a crystal ball, suddenly raised his eyebrows. Oh, it had to be said. Moses could suppress the god of divination in terms of divination. In terms of foresight, he was not afraid of anyone, unless there was a warlock sage who was good at divination. But obviously, the domineering scarab seemed to be a brute. Chapter 564. The legendary mercenary team is going to attack the 5 cities of the Sand Sea. Moses tried his best to make himself understood as he said, "This isn't intelligence. It's just divination. The future predicted isn't certain. It can be changed, so no, even if there's only a 50% chance, I have to be prepared." William clenched his fists. Those B** stars had risked their lives to attack the Highland Tower of the City of Dawn. Who could tolerate that? They were forcing the mercenary team. The others did not know. Perhaps even the legendary mercenary team did not understand. If they attacked the players, the City of Dawn would suffer great losses. One had to understand. The 5 cities of the Sand Sea were managed by the players, but they were part of the City of Dawn in name. Therefore, if the 5 cities of the Sand Sea were attacked, no matter how many losses the players would suffer, they would think that the City of Dawn was unable to protect them. Then, they would have the idea of changing factions. It was simple. The players could be killed in the wilderness. After all, no matter how powerful the City of Dawn was, it could not take care of the players in every corner of the legendary continent. The players knew this. Therefore, if they were killed by NPCs in the wilderness, they would only complain on the forum. They would not have the idea of changing factions. But if the players were killed by NPCs in their hometown, or if the city was massacred and the reinforcement from the City of Dawn arrived late, the players would have a lot of distrust towards the City of Dawn. It might even cause a rift between the City of Dawn and the players. Now, the City of Dawn and the players were like a couple in love. For years had passed. After enduring for 3 years, the players would be able to get rid of the 7-year itch. Just as they were about to enter the marriage hall, if the legendary mercenary team interfered, it would be very disgusting. Such a third party would be beaten to death and drowned in a pig cage. Therefore, William thought for a while and made some preparations. He wanted to play with the legendary mercenary team as much as he could. Moses did not say much. He knew that William was very strong, but he was very cautious. He would not give himself away. Perhaps he could trick the legendary mercenary team. A few days ago, William told her about the situation of the godly slaying temple. He also told her not to appear in the battlefield to prevent being tracked down by the godly slaying temple. Back then, Moses had pondered for a while and only shook his head, indicating that he had never heard of such an organization in the mythological era. But when she learned about the practices of the divine slaying temple from William, she seemed to have remembered something. After a long time, after William made all the necessary arrangements, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. The prince yawned as he walked to the observation deck. He looked at the night sky outside. The stars were everywhere, and the moon was high up in the sky. Coupled with the magic lights that never went out in the city, the scenery was like a beautiful painting. Moses walked slowly to his side. She suddenly said, "You said that the people from the God-slaying hall will steal the power source of the reincarnated God." "Yes, but I heard it from someone else." "Did you think of something?" William turned his head and saw Mo's side profile under the moonlight. Her skin was so white, super beautiful. William didn't know what was wrong with him. He just leaned forward and secretly kissed her. It was soft and smooth. Pop! It was a simple kiss. It was a very crisp sound. The prince retracted his head like a thief. He was afraid that he would be beaten into a pig's head. This time, Mo's reaction was not fast. She didn't have her guard up against William. At this moment, she was thinking about something important. But when she regained her senses, she blushed and pouted coquettishly. I just thought of something about the divine slaying temple. You are so annoying. I'm definitely not an immortal. William hid at the side and shrugged. He could not help but purse his lips and reminisce. But he had to say it. The taste was great. He wanted to have another taste, especially when he saw Moses acting coquettishly for the first time. He wanted to turn his eyes into a video recorder and engrave this scene in his mind. But both of them had important matters to discuss. In addition, there was no upper limit to the speed of the car. It was a little bad. Moses quickly calmed down. Based on her memory, she said, "The divine slaying temple that you mentioned reminded me of a very important matter. At the end of the mythological era, the gods were in a crisis of faith. Even I was no exception. At that time, the gods only had two choices. First, leave the gods' continent and block the prayers of the believers. Then, use countless years to strip away the faith. This method requires great perseverance and determination. When the faith is continuously stripped away, one's combat power and realm will also decrease. This will cause some people's state of mind to change, and they might not be able to persevere. Second, reincarnate in the fourth era, when the holy road is the most prosperous. At that time, not only can we solve the problem of faith, but we can also get rid of our previous identity. At that time, we were faced with a crisis. We only had these two choices. If not, we would become a lunatic who was consumed by faith." William raised his eyebrows in surprise. These words were exactly the same as Odin's bragging. He silently gave himself a thumbs up. He had even pretended to be the truth. No wonder the holy angel was fooled. He was too king smart. Before Moses finished speaking, her tone gradually became very serious. Actually, at that time, the gods who chose the divine path and the divine path had not completely broken off. Even if there were some differences, they would at most quarrel. They would not really fight. But an accident occurred. A god discovered a method that could eliminate the faith and also allow him to enjoy the fruits of others' labor. What? William swallowed his saliva. Moses narrowed her eyes and slowly said, "The god's origin substitution method." William was confused. He did not understand at all. Moses knew that he did not understand. So she continued to explain. For example, if I had not reincarnated, I could have used this method to continue living. As for the method, that was to capture a suitable god and make him a vessel to help me absorb faith and provide me with supreme divine power. He was a puppet that absorbed faith and fed back divine power. Not only will that god become a complete lunatic, but he will also never be able to reincarnate. It is more likely that he will be used as a vessel for others to enjoy. When William heard this, he felt a chill down his spine. Damn it, wasn't this too evil? Since he could not bear the faith, he had to capture other gods to replace him and absorb the faith to make himself stronger. It was so perverted that it was unimaginable. Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself. Wasn't the person who suggested this idea beaten to death? William could not help but feel sad for the gods who were treated as puppets. Moses sighed and continued saying, "Ever since this method appeared, and some gods mysteriously disappeared, we started to feel insecure. All of us began to feel insecure. Some of the more popular main gods under their command would often gather quite a few deities and form a system of their own. Originally, we innate gods lived on our own and rarely had any contact with each other. But from that moment onwards, our living habits changed. As the city lord, William, you are in charge of tens of millions of commoners. You should understand what it means to reduce the intelligence of a group. You know, no matter what living creature or race, even if it's a god, as long as he joins a group, he will develop a herd mentality and his intelligence will decrease. When a person lives alone and has different opinions, as long as he joins a group, his brain will involuntarily become very low. Even if he sees some problems, he will have to adapt to the group and cannot say it out loud. It was also when the gods began to live together and their intelligence decreased that the civil war between the gods began. The difference between the divine path and the divine path became greater and greater. In addition to the continuous disappearance of gods, the war of the gods finally erupted. At this point, Moses did not continue with the story. Instead, she said in a low voice, "If there are no accidents, the ability of the murdering god temple to plunder the origin of the gods should have escaped from the god origin substitution technique. Every reincarnated god has a god origin that even sages can't detect. This is the key reason why we can awaken our memories and constantly become stronger. However, not only can the murdering god temple detect the god origin, but they can also plunder it. Other than the god origin substitution technique, I can't think of any other method." William swallowed his saliva and could not help but ask, "Are you saying that the founder of the murdering god temple is very likely someone from the mythological era?" "It's very possible. Or rather, it's a sage who inherited the god origin substitution technique. But no matter what, I dare say that the founder of the murdering god temple is definitely not dead. He definitely has a huge conspiracy." Moses was very confident in her guess. Or rather, she believed in her sixth sense and divination. She even suspected that the founder of the murdering god temple was the fellow who had created the god origin substitution technique. At the same time, William also felt a deep sense of fear. In particular, he had a feeling that the more he knew the truth of the matter, the more uneasy he felt. So he hurriedly pulled Moses' arm and said, "Remember, don't interfere in the battle with the legendary mercenary team. My avatar has become a god, and I still have the 10 drops of blood essence that my father left me. Even if a sage descends, it's fine. But if something happens to you, it's better to destroy the city of Dawn and give it away." When Moses heard this, she felt as if she had eaten honey. She bit her lip and kissed William back. Then she turned and ran away. William touched his cheek in a daze. His reaction was too slow. If only he had turned his head. "I'm still underage, and I want to kiss you. That's so exciting." He felt that he was about to reach the peak of his life. Chapter 565. The war between the City of Dawn and the legendary mercenary team had caused a lot of trouble in the cities of the human empires and kingdoms. Fortunately, there were not many casualties among the civilians in the cities. They had also seen the notice and did not take the initiative to approach the strongholds of the two forces. In addition, the guards in the cities had set up a warning line around the strongholds of the City of Dawn and the legendary mercenary team. Even if the two forces fought each other, as long as they did not leave the area, the survival of the civilians would not be affected. Some of the roofs near the stronghold were even selling melon seeds, benches, and small red wine. The battle for the strongholds was secondary, as the legendary mercenary team wanted to attack the 5 cities of the Sand Sea. William had to take the initiative to join them in an attempt to trick them. But who would have thought that Paul Bain's intelligence department was not to be underestimated? They had discovered that the Dawn Army was secretly moving towards the 5 cities of the Sand Sea. As such, both sides raised their war flags and sent out millions of soldiers to the plains of the Sand Sea. They would fight head-on. The 5 cities of the Sand Sea were not a line of defense. The battlefield was the endless sea of sand outside. After all, William did not want his territory to be bombarded by cannons. It would be fine if the legendary mercenary group attacked the city unprepared. The players wouldn't be able to stop them, and the city wouldn't suffer too much damage. However, if the legendary mercenary group tried to defend the city, the magic cannons would blast the city to smithereens. If that happened, the players would complain, so the Dawn Army had to keep the enemies at a distance. At this moment, the 800,000 soldiers of the Dawn Army gathered on the endless sea of sand. The front line formed was unimaginably long. From north to south, the front line stretched for tens of miles. Almost every inch of land was occupied by the Dawn Army soldiers. Now, the soldiers in the tents had already sharpened their weapons and put on their armor. They were ready to attack the legendary mercenary team at any time. William had also arranged for 2 million high-level players to participate in this war. They were divided into teams of 3,000, and every 3 teams would follow a regular Dawn army of 5,000 soldiers. This way, not only could they protect the flanks of the Dawn army from being attacked, but under the leadership of the Dawn army, the players would be able to unleash their full potential. As for the West, naturally, it was the 2 million soldiers of the legendary mercenary team. Both sides had similar military strength, but the quality of the 2 million players was completely different from the legendary mercenary team. However, there was one thing that was very important. Mercenaries were not warriors who worked for the king. They were not afraid of death and were brave. This group of professionals who fought for money. If the battle was not going well, it was very likely that they would just run away. This alone made their combat power not much different from that of the players. But the legendary mercenary team has 3 legendary professionals and more than 30 epic professionals. If they don't die, the other mercenaries won't be able to escape. They won't dare to escape. William personally went to the front line to oversee the battle. He looked at Burned Cinder, Sarimas, Diablo, Rampaging Dragon, and the others. He felt that it would be difficult for them to lose this battle. Both sides had set up camp less than 30,000 meters away from each other. In this boundless desert, they could easily see the enemy army not far away with their naked eyes. The armies of both sides were like 2 gigantic beasts lying quietly on the desert plains. As night fell, the bonfires and magic lamps were lit up one after another. William received a transmission. Immediately after, he flew up into the sky and looked at the southern battlefront that was 20 li away. The legendary mercenary team suddenly sent out 30,000 elite soldiers. They wanted to launch a sneak attack on the Dawn army. But in this magical fantasy world, there were too many investigative and defensive methods. The soldiers and players of the Dawn army were already prepared. When they came to a position 3,000 meters away from the campsite, they drew their swords and charged forward. The arrows, magic skills, and various light beams of the cannon gunners bombarded them. William used the ability of the Eye of Thunder to easily see that the combat power of the regular army of the Dawn army was superior. When the shield warriors collided, the enemy mercenaries were forced to retreat. If the players on both sides were slightly weaker, they might have been able to kill all the mercenaries in one wave. This was the advantage of careful selection. William could use the godly insight to easily select soldiers with higher bloodline. 1 or 2 soldiers were useless, but when they formed a legion, it would be very useful. Of course, the combat power of the legendary mercenary team was not too weak, especially those barbaric mercenaries. They could use their bloodline and equipment to easily crush the players at the front and directly kill their way to the center of the battle formation. Brothers, follow me. These chosen ones in front of us are as strong as women. Let me *CK them up. After easily penetrating the player's formation, a tall NPC shield bearer suddenly grinned and roared happily. On the other hand, the mercenary shield bearers who were on the same front line were also waving their battle swords excitedly, easily forcing the players to retreat. But good times did not last long. Then a battle drum sounded. Thousands of white lights rose at the same time, and the shield warriors who had just died were all resurrected. At this moment, the mercenary shield bearers who had charged into the army of players were stunned. They looked back and gulped continuously. One of the NPC mercenaries hurriedly shouted, "Quick, retreat." These chosen ones actually used the most exhausting method to revive on the spot. Our path of retreat has been cut off. Let's kill our way back. Speaking of which, the thousands of shield warriors died too quickly. It felt as if they were not wearing any equipment. They should be, but they were wearing equipment that only beginner professions would wear. I killed a few chosen ones just now and realized that their equipment was inferior. What the *CK, this group of D*MN foreigners. Brother, why is your scolding so fresh and refined? It's completely different from ours. No matter what, the NPCs had long seen through the player's tactic of selling their equipment. But if you have Zhang Yang's plan, I have a wall ladder. The players who had the shop's clothing were extremely arrogant. Each of them looked like a piece of artifact skin that was temporarily pasted on beginner-level equipment. This made it impossible for the NPCs to tell what equipment the players were wearing, especially the shop's pictures. They were flashy and had no attributes at all. They were as handsome as they could be. With more than 300 years of online gaming history, all kinds of equipment, weapons, and skins could be found in the god's shop. You saw a player holding a dragon blade in his hand, looking mighty and domineering. Greed rose in your heart, and you tried to chop this chosen one to drop his equipment. But after you really dropped his equipment, you would find that the so-called dragon blade would also turn into a beginner-level sword of just the right length. The quality was rubbish. The level was rubbish. The rank was rubbish. At this moment, you felt that something was wrong, because a group of players who were squatting in the grass suddenly jumped out. They seemed to be fishing. It cannot be helped. Ever since the god's official shop became more and more shameless, the players had more and more weapons, equipment, and skins. But they had also experienced the experience of being attacked by NPCs while wandering in the wild and getting their equipment stolen. Oh, this was a terrible experience for the players. However, not only did the players immediately get used to this experience, but they also thought of the plan of using weapons made of skin as bait. At this moment, the god's world had become a world where NPCs and players killed each other. In a chaotic battle of 30,000 players, the City of Dawn achieved the final victory by killing 13,000 enemies. Only 600 of the City of Dawn's regular soldiers had died. The majority of the players had died. The shield bearers had died more than twice. But regardless of whether it was the guild subsidies or the wartime subsidies of the Dawn mercenary team, the players would not suffer losses. The players who had just fought in a small-scale battle were happily cleaning up the battlefield. Besides handing over the equipment that they had picked up to the management of the guild, they also had to drag the corpses of the enemies back to exchange them for contribution points. Actually, there was no other way. After the players killed the NPCs, the number of equipment that they could obtain depended on their fate. The other equipment would be worn by the NPCs, but the players would not be able to loot them. But the players could not loot them. William could loot them. Hence, there was a profit chain of collecting the corpses and equipment. As for the human corpses, it was a conclusion. The City of Dawn had fought many wars and had never suffered losses. When Paul Bain saw that the remaining 18,000 defeated soldiers had returned, he was not interested in consoling them. He looked up at William, who was also in the sky. William seemed to have sensed his gaze. He turned and gave Paul Bain a middle finger. Then, he flew down without looking back. The leader of the legendary mercenary team was furious, but he could only helplessly ask Alfred, who was beside him, "Have the reinforcements of sacred armor and the others arrived?" "Soon. In 3 days. After all, we're a little early. But the rule of soldiers fighting soldiers, generals fighting generals, and kings fighting kings is applicable in the God's continent. You can't possibly let us, the epic and legendary professionals, kill the ordinary soldiers of the City of Dawn, right? I still want to save face." Paul Bain rolled his eyes. Could this muscular man not insult others so much? "I'm the leader of the legendary mercenary team. Can't you give me some face, brother?" Then he said, "I'm waiting for the reinforcements to arrive. Then I'll attack with all my troops. I don't believe that when all the high-level combatants of the City of Dawn perish, even if the chosen ones can be resurrected, they will have to run away." Alfred was half naked. He touched his bald head, which was reflecting the moonlight. He curled his lips and said, "Perhaps the City of Dawn thinks the same way. After all, I've never seen the City of Dawn suffer a defeat. Then, let me break the legend of the City of Dawn's ever-victorious record." Paul Bain narrowed his eyes. If there were 3 or 4 legendary professionals, he did not believe that a legendary druid, the Lord of the City of Dawn, and Moses, who rarely showed his face, could stand against them. After all, Paul Bain, Alfred, and Wendy were all experts in the legendary realm. As long as Wendy and another legendary expert attacked the druid named Serimas, they would be able to stop him. The Lord of the City of Dawn was his opponent. As for the multi-elemental great enchanter, who was chased by a grand mage, they could not underestimate her. But if the other legendary professionals surrounded her, How could they not be able to stop a magical professional? At this moment, William did not know what he was thinking. Otherwise, he would definitely say, "Have you eaten too much sh*t? I don't intend to let my MO participate in this war, okay? And you really don't know how much dragon blood I secretly obtained during the chaos of the dragon race." Chapter 566. Many places near William's tent were forbidden to the players. The players were naturally very curious. They thought that he was hiding some godly soldiers and generals. But the most shocking thing was that when the assassin sneaked in and wanted to take a look, he bumped into the barrier. Legendary magical barrier. The players thought that the City of Dawn was hiding a huge treasure. Even the legendary mercenary team had the same thought. Paul Bane had already noticed this problem. His scouting methods did not detect the Dragonblood Legion of the City of Dawn. The famous Honor Legion, Night Legion, and so on did not discover them. He asked curiously, "Have you found out how many invisible barriers there are on the front lines of the City of Dawn?" "Legion Commander, there are too many. According to the intelligence obtained by the scouts, there are at least 100 barriers on the front lines of the City of Dawn. At least 3 legions can be hidden within these barriers." 100. Alfred's mouth twitched. Who the hell would be able to investigate that? Who knows what kind of barrier is hiding the invincible Dragonblood Legion? But Moses is selling magic scrolls wholesale. "Wendy, you should create 100 barriers. Let's show the scouts of the City of Dawn what it means to hide in the fog." Wendy raised her eyebrows. She ignored Alfred and said plainly, "I can't afford to do that. Sorry." Paul Bane coughed softly. "It's fine. Moses has created so many magic scrolls, so he must have expended a lot of energy. Since they are purposely trying to mislead us, let's probe them a little more. We can definitely find out how many legions they have hidden through the forces at the borders. 3 days later, when the main attack begins, we will focus on their weak points and attack." Paul Bane wanted to find out the City of Dawn's true strength, and its depth within 3 days. But the City of Dawn also wanted to test the combat power of the legendary mercenary team. William gave an order. No matter how many enemies there were, the Dawn army had to face them head-on. They had to fight like real men. They had to make the enemies run away with their butts facing them. Hence, small-scale chaotic battles had already broken out on this endless front line. Tens of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, the duration of which was relatively short. Basically, they were just probing each other, but both sides also had victories and losses because who knew what kind of enemy was at the front of the front line? They could only test each other and constantly adjust the positions of the armies. They tried their best to let the Grandmaster armies face off against the Grandmasters and the high-level ones against the high-level ones. Chu Liuqiu and the others had just returned from the battlefield. From the expressions of these pro players, they had definitely made a killing. Chanli Jioga held an epic sword and said, TSK, the legendary mercenary group is really rich. A master boss can drop such a good item. We should be able to sell it later and make a killing. Speaking of which, the quality of the legions on both sides is about the same. The quality of their equipment is basically all gold equipment and dark gold weapons. After this mission, many players will have to upgrade their equipment. Chu Liuqiu scratched his head. He felt that the legendary continent was too awesome. There were too many missions in the City of Dawn. At this moment, the average level of the Chinese players was 3 to 5 levels higher than that of the players from other continents. Of course, the difference between the top professional players would not be that huge. But when millions of players gather together, there would be a qualitative change due to the quantity. According to the information revealed by the NPCs and the predictions of the players, there would be a war in the next version. If the City of Dawn won the SSS level main storyline mission, the strength of the Chinese players would be greatly improved. In the next version, they would definitely be very powerful. Xiao Ayin could tell that Chu Liuqiu was trying to stir up trouble. She could not help but ask, "Captain, are you really going to retire after this year's World Championship?" "Gosh, Captain, if you want to retire, then I'm ready." Chanli Jioga laughed mischievously. He revealed an expression that showed that he had been coveting the position of captain for a long time. Chu Yochio glanced at Changli Joga indifferently. He sat on the sandy ground and sighed. Yes, I've won 3 consecutive championships. I've also changed from a single young man to a married man. Furthermore, I've been single for 26 years, and I've been shackled. I only hope to win the championship this year and retire peacefully. This is truly a brave retirement. Changli Joga was just joking. He admired Chu Liuqiu, who had led him to success step by step. In particular, he knew that he could not retire after leading his team to 3 consecutive championships. At the very least, he would have to rely on his skyrocketing net worth to survive for 2 years. He would earn as much as he could. The club would not be able to persuade him to retire, and the fans would also put a lot of pressure on the club. Many teams in the virtual world were in such a situation. There were too many slackers in a team. If there were 3 slackers in a team, the 2 newbies would have to retire sooner or later. Xiao Ayan's eyes revealed a tinge of reluctance. She suddenly asked, "Captain, what do you plan to do after retiring? Are you still playing this game?" "Of course I'll play. As long as the gods don't fall, I won't fall. When the time comes, I'll organize a group of retired experts to roam the national battlegrounds and focus on beating up the foreign players. I'll admit defeat if I don't beat them up." Chu Yochio laughed mischievously. He seemed to be very excited about his future plans. Changli Joga smiled and scratched his head. "When the time comes, we won't be able to fight the national battles all day. We'll have to train constantly. But the captain only needs to say the word, and all the members will be there immediately. At most, we'll lose all our equipment. We can also borrow a set of equipment from the Lord for the World Tournament." "All right. Actually, I can't wait. I'm a strategic player, but you want me to lead the team. It's a waste of a national battle genius like me." Chu Yochio rubbed his palms. He was very excited. The bugle horn sounded again. Chu Yochio waved his hand and roared, "Glory brothers, follow me. Strategy is F*King GB. These sissies are too weak. Let's just kill them. Charge." Countless players charged forward and joined the regular legions in a bloody battle with the enemy. Just as both sides were engaged in a battle, William walked into a magical barrier. When a Dragonblood warrior saw William, he immediately lowered his head and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Lord. Dispense with the formalities. I said that you don't have to bow when wearing armor." "Sorry, every time I see Lord, I can't control my emotions." William raised his eyebrows. This was a good compliment. He had to be rewarded. He decisively placed a magic fruit in the warrior's arms and said, "Work hard on your training. Good luck." "Your Highness." The warrior was moved to tears. It was not only because of the magic fruit, but also because Lord had shaken hands with him. He had decided that he would not wash his hands for at least a month. Did William think that Albert's Dragonblood Legion was inside the barrier? No. The City of Dawn had 2 Dragonblood Legions and a World Snake Legion. Yes, the World Snake Legion. William only needed 1 gigantic world snake to create an army of world snakes. Its value was simply too great. Every member of these 3 super legions was a grandmaster, and the legion commanders were all epic. Their equipment was mostly dark gold. In order to give them a greater advantage on the battlefield, William had asked Moses to calculate the locations of devil's dens. He had asked them to travel all over the legendary continent. He had given them a buff that allowed them to win every battle. In other words, except for the Dragonblood Legion that had the life chain. These 2 legions had the buff of the Dragonblood Legion, the buff of the World Snake Legion, and the buff of the Invincible Legion. In short, these 3 legions were equivalent to 300,000 soldiers of the same level. William was looking forward to the legendary mercenary team's final attack. Their expressions when they saw this, as for playing dirty, such as using epic professionals to wipe out the Dragonblood Legion, William narrowed his eyes. "Let's summon Odin. Let's see if your epic domain or my deity domain can clear the soldiers faster." Chapter 567. It was the same for the magical beasts that the cavalrymen rode on. On the 4th day of the battle, the legendary mercenary team stopped their probing attacks. William took the time to look at the information of the various cities and strongholds in his territory. The players who did not participate in this mission performed well. They used their suicidal tactics to destroy the enemy's strongholds. The legendary and epic professionals from both sides soared into the sky. Their battlefield was above the sea of clouds. Since they had not broken the rules and slaughtered the enemy soldiers, they would not start a massacre in the center of the battlefield. The distance between the legendary and epic professionals kept decreasing. Finally, as long as the legendary mercenary team was not a fool, they would not continue this pointless attack after 3 days of probing attacks. William raised his eyebrows. Even if the two of them held back 6 enemies, there were still 5 legendary professionals. The 2 legions of the City of Dawn, the Dragon Blood Legion and the World Snake Legion, took the initiative to attack. The moment they opened their eyes, they were stunned. There were more than 100 probing battles in the past 3 days. Almost every legion had fought at least one battle in the tens of kilometers of battlefront. The City of Dawn had the support of Odom's lonely mountain kingdom. Their equipment was not inferior to the City of Dawn. Even with the support of the legendary mercenary team from the Murderous Temple, they were not as powerful as the City of Dawn. In an instant, every time the enemy launched an attack, the sounds would be heard from afar. Even if the battlefield did not extend to this area, it would still make people feel very tired and unable to sleep. It was a battle between trump cards. The legions of the City of Dawn that were stacked with countless buffs were not afraid of anyone. As a result, the number of cannons and magic cannons in the legendary mercenary team was small compared to the legendary mercenary team. But the enemies did not give him much time to rest. Both sides had their own epic experts. It was impossible to escape the battlefield. The epic expert of the legendary mercenary team waved his hand, and the Beast Blood Berserker Legion of the Extreme North mercenary team moved out. Good. Let's walk in the sky. William laughed coldly. He ascended to the sky in 3 steps. The warriors of the City of Dawn also moved forward and prepared for the battle. If they continued to fight, the legendary mercenary team would definitely lose. Even with the support of the Murderous Temple, they would only be wasting resources, equipment, and manpower. Saramis grinned. As long as there are no time enchanters, 5 or 6 legendary professionals will not be a problem. As the rhythm of the war drums gradually increased, the 2 million troops of the legendary mercenary group attacked at the same time. Paul Bane glanced at the warriors on both sides and nodded his head in approval. 3 black lines appeared on his forehead. He had been hammered by the truth. This group of fellows never knew fatigue. Those were 2 divisions of the Dragonblood Legion, each consisting of 5,000 people. They wore dragon-scale armor and wielded dragonblood sabers. Their mounts were as agile as the wind, and each of them possessed the power of a grandmaster. William stood high in the sky and looked at the black tide of steel. He waved his hand calmly. As for the other 7 legions, they were Glory Legion, Night Legion, Moonlight Legion, Dawn Legion, and so on in an instant. The battlefield of the legendary mercenary group was full of blood and broken arms. Subsequently, Paul Bane flew high into the sky and headed straight for the City of Dawn's campsite. William flew into the sky as well. He did not know if the bastard in front of him was trying to fool around or declare war. William was going to the sky and not to a faraway place. Everyone would be able to enjoy his perverted buff. Just the aura of these legions was enough to make the enemy legions shrivel up. Many of them were so scared that they peed their pants. They wanted to escape as soon as possible. So Paul Bane waved his hand. Space manipulation. I remember that Wendy is a space enchanter. Even if she can't defeat you, she can find 2 more people to hold you back. Burned Cinder raised his eyebrows. He was very unhappy that someone had surpassed him and reached the legendary realm. He had even fooled Prince William. The shield-bearers formed a straight line. The gunmen, swordsmen, and swordsmen were all behind them. The rangers and mages were the last. 10,000 pairs of dazzling golden eyes appeared on the battlefield. Thousands of magic cannons and cannons fired at the same time. The earth element mages in the Legion created tall cannon turrets that had the most suitable firing positions. Forget it. Out of sight, out of mind. Paul Bane unsheathed his sword and pointed it at William. He shouted, "Soldier against soldier, general against general. I heard that you were invincible after reaching the legendary realm. Let me test your abilities." At this moment, Paul Bane and the others knew this. However, Paul Bane was slightly shocked. He did not expect William to know so much. He even said that he did not care about the arrival of the sages. But since that was the case, there was nothing more to say. In the tens of kilometers of battle line, gaps suddenly appeared in 10 positions. This was a group of berserkers with a bloodline of magical beasts. They killed magical beasts all year round and bathed in the blood of the beasts. When they were in a state of battle, they would transform into beastman berserkers. Magic cannons, and heavy crossbows were also moved to the center of the army. William, this was the trump card of the Eastern Mercenary Alliance. Paul Bane glanced at the thousands of magic cannons and felt a great pressure. They were only mercenaries, and there weren't that many civilians in their territory. Even if they occupied some neutral cities, there wasn't much of a need to take precautions. "You're crazy. We've already fought to this extent, and you want me to admit defeat? Do you think you can rely on those weak people from the godly slaying temple? To be frank, I don't care even if a few sacred armors pop out," the prince said impatiently as he cupped his ears. As for the cannon gunners, they were treated the same as the warriors. They stood behind the shield bearers because their normal attack range was not that exaggerated. But as long as they were within the range, they were the truth. William only wanted to use his power to suppress the enemy. As long as the sages did not attack first, he would have the upper hand. It was not that he was not confident. He was afraid that some shameless bastard would take advantage of their weakness and slaughter their legions. That would be disgusting. It didn't take too long. The guild leaders of the Misty Rain Tower, Righteous Sprout, Glory, Golden Era, and other large guild were constantly sending messages with their transmission scrolls. They asked the 1,000-man team leaders to stay calm and follow the regular legions. As long as they could protect the flanks of the regular legions, the City of Dawn would lead them to victory. Their aura was terrifying. The two armies were only a few thousand meters apart. They have many reinforcements. But Prince William, you can leave 3 of them to me. Burn Cinder held his blood-red sword. He was in high spirits. Burn Cinder and Sarimas also sensed this scene and came to his side. They furrowed their brows as they looked at the strangers who had arrived. These legions were the veteran legions of the City of Dawn. Since the establishment of the City of Dawn, the members have been replaced many times. But their numbers and spirit were still there. Their strength was also increasing. They were all equipped with dark gold equipment and epic weapons. It was at this moment. But he was a man of great ambition. Since this matter had been confirmed, he could only take a deep breath and say in a deep voice, "Don't talk about Cannel. You should have seen that I have 6 more legendary experts and a total of 20 epic experts. As long as we don't kill you, your father will definitely not come to save you. But the City of Dawn will definitely lose. I can give you a chance. From now on, if the City of Dawn only maintains its mercenary mission in the 3rd level of the legendary continent, I will let you go." But to a certain extent, both sides had entered a period of weakness. This was because the horns and war drums were too frequent. This group of ferocious legions pierced through the mountain-like battle formation and pierced into the heart of the enemy's army. At the same time, the players watched with excitement as the enemy's main army gradually approached. Rumble. Countless people held their breaths involuntarily. Besides, after the merger of the legendary mercenary teams, they had created many powerful Grandmaster legions. Coupled with the equipment provided by the Godslayer Temple, their combat power continued to increase. Furthermore, all the major powers on the continent knew that the Chosen Ones could only revive 6 times a day. If they wanted to defeat the City of Dawn, they had to defeat the players until they could not revive. Then, they had to crush the Dawn army in front of them. The City of Dawn also won more than they lost. These warriors were all armed to the teeth. Just by standing there, they were like a group of cold dragons roaring. The low sounds of the horns were heard. They were also a legion of dragons' blood warriors. Even though there were only 3,000 of them, it was enough for them to fight valiantly. This was a super legion that was well-equipped and trained in both combat and magic. Every one of them was an elite warrior who could train in both battle energy and magic. When this group of people gathered together, their combat power was unparalleled. They could easily use magic and battle energy skills. They had beheaded and captured more than 90,000 enemy soldiers, but they had only suffered 183,000 casualties. To a certain extent, William had taken advantage of the players. Their frequent suicides were the main reason why the City of Dawn had suffered so few casualties. There was a difference. Did they know what the endowment of a legendary lord was? Don't call me so intimately, you bastard. I still remember how you tricked my brother Garnier to death. It's good that I inherited his citadel, so I can fulfill his wish, and that is to kill you. William sneered. His voice was very loud and spread over a wide range. At that moment, fight! As for this method, only one wave rush could achieve it. Many people widened their eyes. The World Snake Legion looked like the dragon's blood warriors. This caused the enemies to think that the City of Dawn had 15,000 dragons' blood warriors. Everyone knew who would be the ones suffering the most. But the players, the trump card of the Sunset Mercenary team, also attacked. Sounds of horse hooves and footsteps. Sarimas was also unhappy with Burn Cinder. Both of them were at loggerheads. Dragon's might was boundless. He had underestimated Paul Bane's character. William suddenly felt an unfamiliar aura. He immediately flew out of his tent and looked at the tens of light figures coming from the horizon. A total of 8 legendary and 20 epic warriors were heading toward the legendary mercenary team's camp. But just when everyone thought that the City of Dawn would have to face the enemy passively, they were also a trump card legion. Chapter 568. The battlefront spanned tens of kilometers, and there were close to 4 million combatants. The scene was grand and majestic. When the two armies collided, it was as though two majestic mountains had collided. The rumbling sounds were deafening. The murderous aura that soared into the sky had already shattered the clouds, causing many legendary and epic-ranked figures above their heads to explode. It was as though the entire world had changed color. All kinds of cannons and magic cannons were wreaking havoc in the armies of both sides. The power of the cannons was average. To the fully armed advanced professionals, the cannons were not lethal weapons. They could even be easily dodged. But every shot from the magic cannons could cover a radius of tens of meters. When the violent energy and dust dissipated, the high-grade professions within the explosion range, even if they could survive, were basically burnt to a crisp. It was common for them to lose their arms or legs. What was more serious was that their bodies were directly blown in half, and yet they could still breathe. That was truly a tragic sight. The effect of the heavy crossbows was much stronger than the cannons. As long as the quality of the heavy crossbows and arrows was high enough, and the enchanted attributes of the mages were high enough, the crossbows and arrows could be strung together. The soldiers who were running on the battlefield suddenly felt a pain in their chest. Then, they retreated along with the barbed arrows. The barbed arrows could only be described as cruel. But this was war. Killing sounds, roars, and war drums were heard. Within a few minutes, the battle had reached its climax. The most eye-catching battle was the 3 super legions of the City of Dawn. In particular, the City of Dawn's first Dragonblood Legion, which possessed the legendary soldier type. It made people understand what it meant to be invincible and invincible. Albert was an epic legion commander, but he did not lead the charge. He was the commander-in-chief of this battle, so he stayed at the rear. But as the military flag was waved, this legion had already clashed with the legendary Dragonblood mercenary team's 3,000 Dragonblood Legion members. All of them were Dragonblood warriors. They were the trump cards of their respective factions. Who would win and who would lose? Or rather, how long would this battle between aces last? No one knew, but in many people's minds, they were evenly matched. At most, the Dragonblood Legion of the City of Dawn had the advantage in terms of numbers. But at the moment when both sides clashed, countless people were dumbfounded. Whether it was the players, the warriors on their side, or the enemy soldiers, all of them stared blankly at the scene. Crushed. It was a complete and utter suppression. Even though they were all on the same level, had the same equipment, and had the same power, Bane's Dragonblood Legion was still completely suppressed. This was because when the two armies collided, they activated their army skills at almost the same time. However, the Dawn Dragonblood Legion summoned a giant that was almost 1,000 meters tall. With a single slash of its saber, dazzling saber chi spread for thousands of meters. This super area of effect attack not only broke the enemy army skills, but it also sent them tumbling. Many of the enemy Dragonblood warriors were almost cut in half at the waist. Their formation was thrown into chaos. Meanwhile, the entire Dawn Dragonblood Legion instantly transformed into dragon form. Dragon form special effect, morale plus 30, a giant dragon image appears above the Legion members' heads, increasing defense and attack power by 20%. You should know, this Legion had the Divine Dragon Slayer army buff, which was a combination of Zhan Long and God Weapon. All attributes of the Legion members increased by 80%. Their maximum HP plus 80%, attack power plus 100%, defense plus 60%, and movement speed plus 40%. On top of that, they did not need to fear death as the Chains of Life buff. As a result, the Dragonblood Legion was like a group of killing gods. Not only did they cause the enemy Dragonblood warriors to collapse, but they also cut down enemy after enemy with every swing of their saber. They did not even need to defend themselves. A captain of the Dragonblood Legion was covered in armor, and a layer of fiery red scales appeared on his skin. He rode on his wolf and charged forward, his dazzling red saber chi cutting through a bloody path. The warriors behind him were also fire professions. When professions of the same attribute came together, they would definitely erupt with extraordinary lethality. What about the Dragonblood warriors of the same element? They would be able to kill gods and Buddhas if they stood in their way. The enemy Dragonblood warriors wanted to retaliate. Their attacks could cut through the armor, scales, and flesh of the warriors of the Dawn Army. They could also cause them to bleed profusely. However, with the Chains of Life and their super recovery speed, they were practically immortal. No matter how exaggerated their injuries were, they could recover instantly. Following the angry roar of the Dragonblood warrior, the hundreds of Dragonblood warriors behind him also roared. At the same time, they spat out flames from their mouths and instantly formed a fire dragon that was hundreds of meters long. It swept everything in front of them. It was a group-type dragon language magic. This situation also occurred among the small teams. As the trump card of the City of Dawn, they had to fight against the strongest troops of the enemy and completely defeat them. They were like a hot knife through butter. In just 20 minutes, the legendary mercenary team's 3,000 Dragonblood warriors had lost less than 1,000 members. If the other Grandmaster legions had not rushed to the front when the Dragonblood warriors were about to be annihilated, not a single one of them would have survived. Other than some of their mounts, the rest of the Dragonblood Legion did not die in battle. They could even fight against the waves of Grandmaster legions that surrounded them. 1 hour later, the Invincible Legion killed within a radius of thousands of meters. No one dared to approach them. The legendary mercenary team consisted of more than 1 million members. No matter which legion saw the Dragonblood Legion, all of them retreated. Some of them even abandoned their helmets and armor. The players were completely dumbfounded. Forever Alone did not even know how to use his pistols. He was supposed to be extremely talented at using pistols. But when he saw the Dragonblood Legion chasing away the enemies in front of them, he could not help but mutter, "No wonder this legion doesn't need players to guard the flanks. They can't keep up with the pace of the enemy's killing." At this moment, many players looked at the other legion of the City of Dawn, the Dragonblood Legion and the World Snake Legion. These two legions were also very powerful. They had defeated the enemy's Berserker Legion and the War and Magic Warrior Legion. However, they were not as powerful as the Dragonblood Legion. The Dragonblood Legion even had players guarding the flanks to prevent the enemy from launching a sneak attack from both sides. It could almost be said that this golden legendary Dragonblood Legion was the most unrivaled legion on this battlefield. If there were no accidents, as long as the Dragonblood Legion won the battle above their heads, the Dawn army would not need to intervene in the battle on the ground. The battle in the sky had already begun. Diablo, Violent Dragon, Legolas, Lotner, Little Angel Shien, and many other experts were super experts who could fight against many enemies. William's Space Ring originally had 21 epic heroic spirits, but the Magic Sanctuary had sent their epic heroic spirits. The prince reluctantly accepted 36 epic heroic spirits. Hence, the number of epic experts in the City of Dawn surpassed the legendary mercenary team. Even if the legendary mercenary team received reinforcements from the godly slaying temple, it would be useless. At most, the heroic spirit puppets did not have much intelligence. But if there were more of them, wouldn't it be enough to ensure that they would not die? As for the legendary experts, William knew that he did not have enough of them. But the Magic Temple had lost 3 legend professions back then: a space enchanter, Irene a water enchanter, and a fire enchanter. When the 3 of them were mentioned, the 3 legendary mercenary team and the 8 legendary professionals from the godly slaying temple felt pressured, because their appearance prevented the legendary mercenary team's plan to outnumber the legendary mercenary team. At this moment, Sarimas had transformed into a time dragon that was hundreds of meters long. He was constantly using his time endowment to deal with the space enchanter, Windy, and a thunder legendary warrior. When the 3 sides fought, the surroundings were filled with light that distorted time and space. Lightning was very inconspicuous. In addition, Sarima's time dragon could speed up and slow down time at any time. He completely ignored the flexibility of the space and thunder professionals. He would either use his tail to sweep, claw, or bite. If he was hit by the time dragon's breath, it was guaranteed that all the cells in his body would change at different times. It was very uncomfortable for Jill. In short, the 2 of them could only rely on their own characteristics to restrain Sarimas, who had the inheritance of the beast god. They had no chance of defeating him. After all, there was a saying: dragon race. No matter what kind of dragon it was, all of them were dead. Only the time dragon was still alive. This was because as long as this group of guys stepped into the legendary realm, there would be old bastards who could jump out of the river of time. Wanting to kill a time dragon of the same level was no less difficult than a human warrior using his own size to satisfy a dragon girl's beautiful life. As for Burncinder, he was also dealing with the 2 legendary warriors. One of them was Alfred from the legendary mercenary team. The other one was also a fire element warrior sent by the godly slaying temple. As a 1,000-meter-long flaming saber light slashed across, Burncinder used his left hand to block the saber light. When he retreated tens of meters, the saber light was completely destroyed. The flaming energy flowed along his left hand and entered his body. However, Alfred seized the opportunity. His entire body was like a cannonball, drawing a trajectory in the sky. He swung his battle axe down. Bang! There was a violent explosion. The flames on the dragon-slaying saber and the frost on the battle axe collided and exploded continuously. It even formed a shock wave that was thousands of meters long and spread in all directions. That's it. Burncinder sneered as he carried the red dragon-slaying saber that was nearly 2 meters long. Alfred held the frost axe in his hand and gritted his teeth as he said, "I've beaten you up enough. Today, I'll let you know what it means to be in a world of ice and fire. I'll let you have a good time." When the fire element warrior behind him heard this, he could not help but want to say something. However, his lips twitched and he did not dare to make sound. Burncinder looked at him in shock. "Brother, you're a virgin, right? If you want to satisfy me, I can do it." "What? Who are you calling a virgin? You're the one who's a virgin. I'll chop you to death with my axe." Alfred's face turned red, and he was extremely furious. The fire element legendary warrior behind him had no choice but to rush forward. It had to be said, as a fire element professional, he felt extremely pressured when he faced Burncinder. However, at this moment Burncinder laughed. His eyes instantly turned the color of magma. Even his dragon-slaying saber changed. In the end, a pair of flaming wings that looked like a dragon or a phoenix grew on his back. His entire body was covered with runes that looked like white flames. At this moment, his aura was monstrous. This was because the moment Burn's cinder transformed, his aura had reached the peak of the legendary peak.